Pastor Eddie Franklin had to cancel on being able to say the prayer this evening, so Commissioner Mike Stewart has volunteered. If everyone stand.
Please join me. Heavenly Father, again we thank you for this opportunity, God, to come and serve our citizens of this great county that we call Wakulla. Lord, I just ask that you grant each one of us up here wisdom tonight to look through, God, what we have before us and to do the right things, God, that would honor you. Father, I ask that you just bless each one that's here. And we ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to start tonight's meeting with reviewing with the approval of our agenda. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to add one brief announcement. And I was actually expecting more people. They may be coming later, but I'm under the impression that Commissioner Moore's items are going to attract some speakers. So, yeah, what I was going to propose is that I put my items at the end. Move item 12, my two items, after Commissioner Merritt's. And then I was also going to suggest, if Commissioner Moore is willing, to let us do 13B first, and then 13A, and then C. Are you willing to do that?
I probably... Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
So you want to go B, A, C?
Correct.
And then you want yours to follow those, or follow Commissioner Merritt's?
You don't mean C, A, B, do you?
No.
Okay, good. No objections.
No, Commissioner Moore with 13B, then A, then C, then Commissioner Merritt, and then me.
Thank you.
I have an item under awards and presentations, as well as I need to pull item 6 in the consent agenda for discussion, as well as we need to amend item 7 under the consent agenda.
We don't need to pull item 7 to amend it.
No, we just need to amend it.
Okay. Okay. Any additional changes?
Why don't you just note the amendment now?
Yes. Tim?
Would you please note the amendment to...
The workshop that is scheduled for the July meeting is scheduled on a Monday, and it's going to be moved to that Thursday, which is your typical workshop day.
It's actually the June meeting.
June.
Instead of June 18th, it'll be June 21st.
And the board should note that that's not a regular scheduled workshop day in June. So if we want to have Jessica move any workshops that come up in June to that day, so you don't have 2 workshop days in June, that's up to the board. So.
Okay. We'll keep that in mind as we're scheduling closer to June. Okay. Thank you for the heads up. Any additional changes to the agenda this evening?
Motion to...
Oh, I just want to say I'm not going to pull item 9 off the consent agenda out of respect for Jessica and because I think she's one of the best employees we have. But I would like to have a discussion at the end under the discussion items related to that. Thank you.
Okay.
And motion to approve with changes noted.
Second.
Have a motion to approve in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Agenda is approved. We don't have any public hearings this evening, so we will move on to awards and presentations. We will start with Bruce Ashley, who will give us an update on the announcement of Operation Santa success. Oh, so come back to that. We'll come to here after that. We'll come to that. So here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. As always, thank you for your service to our community. We wanted a few minutes to bring to you tonight because so many people in the community were so helpful in our Operation Santa. This is only the second year we've done it, but I wanted to give you an overview of how's this work. There we go. Oh, what did I do, Jessica? Understand? Oh, okay. It's only the second year of operation for Operation Santa from the Wakulla County Coalition for Youth. The 2011 efforts were initiated in October of this year. The coordination and collections of funds new and lightly used items began in November. We were fortunate enough to have the community center this year, which was a wonderful location for our operation because it has grown dramatically since the first year in 2010. We did distribution on December 17th and 18th. We helped 141 local families. Nearly 600 citizens were touched by our operation. After distribution date, we helped an additional 15 or so families, and as late as the week before last, we helped somebody pay their electric bill that were in jeopardy of maybe not even making it through the night, an elderly woman. 67 of these families of the 141 were adopted by you all, the citizens, the businesses, the county, the city employees of our community, individual citizens of our community. Those folks adopting those 67 families represent approximately $33,000 in contributions and donations to those needy folks. The 74 remaining families were coordinated through the community and through the Wakulla County Coalition for Youth. And as I said, additional families were helped after the operation completed because there were some very dire needs that came into the coalition, and we were able to still help. This represents the involvement in our community, and this entire community stepped up, and the involvement was overwhelming. City, county offices, churches, and members. I cannot name them all because we have sent out over 200 letters of thank you for those who stepped up in supporting our goals of helping those in need. Interact students from the high school, Honor Society students from the high school, Avid students from the high school, Bright Future students from the high school, other youth groups from various churches and organizations, and all kinds of citizens stepped forward to help. The Sheriff's Office referred folks, Senior Center referred folks, the Walmart, and Richard Russell had angel trees. The Walmart itself is responsible for over $3,000 worth of donations to our operation. Chamber of Commerce, churches, volunteer fire departments, organizations, individuals, and direct requests. This speaks to the being plugged in as a community. We had this kind of touch with folks in need and bringing forward those who were in a very tough situation this year. Over $10,000 in cash donations was realized by the coalition. $1,000 of that money went to household items, cleaners, soaps, toiletries, toilet paper, paper towels, and the like. $1,000 in undergarments and socks alone were provided to needy families. Food was a big item this year, and a lot of food was distributed. Winn-Dixie helped us with Christmas dinners. The 4-H Extension Office provided bags of fruit, provided pork loins to families who were hungry. We were able to provide several families beds, dryers, haircuts, as you saw a trend nationwide this year with paying off layaways. We were able to do that in certain instances. We paid some electric bills, and we filled out a lot of wishes for young children. We were able to collect 70 bicycles and distribute 70 bikes. 20 of those came from a coordinated effort with Cops for Kids out of Tallahassee. Approximately 600 citizens, men, women, and children, were touched by the coalition and the county and the community's folks stepping in to help. Dozens of citizens responded. As I've said, we've sent out over 200 letters to folks who were direct in their response to our call for help. Greater resources for the future. This has grown so fast in 2 years that it's become a very large operation. And it took a lot of folks, a lot of time, but an ongoing source in our community for folks who get in dire straits on their electric bill, on just paying their rent. We've had those examples in the last few weeks, and that would be a tremendous asset for our county going forward. Greater coordination. We had the best year of the 2 years, but this year we were able to coordinate much better with the churches, with the organizations, the business community, and citizens in general, and helping make it a county-wide effort. But we can still do better, and we want to do that next year. Greater management structure getting some help with the coalition, because we realize what we've been able to do, but we expect it to grow even further, and the needs will exist throughout the year. These are a few photographs, if I could take you through these. Some of the organization that had to occur because of the scope of this operation. We had a list of items posted on the wall at the community center, and we started the flow. We gridded the floor of the community center and put a number for every family that was referred. Inside those grids, we started filling those squares with their wishes and their direct requests for food, diapers, toiletries. We spent over $600 on diapers alone. The community center ended up being full. You see those same grids on the floor as they filled with donations of both new, lightly used, and donated items that we were able to fill out those needs of those families. The room was full both up on stage and down on the floor itself. There is a list of the families, and as we were able to accomplish their needs, we would X those off. And that was at a time when we had 114. And as I said, we ended up with 141. Some of the local church groups and volunteer groups, we came out and we painted boxes, and that's the kind of box that they got their Christmas wish delivered in, the majority of them. Again, a full scope of the community center and just how full this operation used that space. And then hundreds of people came to the after when we opened the community center for all the clothing that we had left, and we had a lot of nice items donated this year. We had a lot of citizens take advantage of that this year, and we were very pleased. What was left, we made a local donation that would continue to benefit citizens in our community. Bicycles were lined up. Bicycles were carried from Cops for Kids. That's 20 bicycles in the back of one truck. This is our ELF team that greeted each family that arrived on distribution day and helped privately take them to their square and answer any questions of needs that they still had, distributed their goods. And this was our meeting center at the front, and it was very organized and very well received. I'd like to read a few. We've had a number of letters from citizens, and I'd just like to read a few quotes, and I'm sorry to take a little more of your time. There aren't enough words to describe how deeply you have touched my children and I. The feeling of love and support from my community that I feel is overwhelming. I explained to the children that the true meaning of Christmas is giving. I must say that this year is the first time in my life that I have ever truly experienced the true meaning of Christmas myself. I pray in the future I am able to help the less fortunate and give to others what you have given to me. And there are numerous letters like that. Wonderful to see my son's face in the morning when he saw his new trike. Thanks to all of you, he now has what he needs to continue therapy at home. I have never experienced the most caring people in the world. When we picked up the gifts, my husband and I myself cried. It was such a blessing. The food basket was awesome. No one really knows the strain people go through trying to run around and find people to help. Y'all did, and for that we are grateful. I would like to thank you for all the clothes for my baby. She looks good in them. And for the soy formula and the 4 cans in the bag. I was not expecting all the items for me and my baby. I get food stamps, thanks to God, but it does not last the whole month. If the person who referred had not called, we would have had no Christmas. I would not have dreamed of calling you all. It is very hard for me to write this personal stuff. I thank you so much because I want you to know just how much your help means. And they go on and on and on. And the true sense of what was accomplished. There's so many stories. I could take an hour. I could take your whole commission meeting. It's truly touching what the community did. And as the commissioner said in his opening blessing for our meeting, it is truly a wonderful county to be in. And everybody should be proud of what was able to be accomplished. I thank you.
Thank you, sir.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for heading this up. And I know you had a ton of folks working. I made a stop by there, and I was told, I didn't get to see her, but I was told our attorney was over there on her hands and knees putting together packages, and I know several commissioners went and worked, and you know, it is great to live in such a place as Wakulla because we care about each other.
It is, and many in this room contributed. And it's just, it really truly is so touching and overwhelming.
We look forward to again this year doing it.
Thank you. Thank you to the whole Coalition for Youth and all their efforts towards that, and everybody participated. Up next in our awards and presentations this evening is a courthouse landscaping project. Joanne Palmer from Keep Wakulla County Beautiful is going to update on that.
Thank you. I'm Joanne from Crawfordville. And first of all, I'd like to thank the Commission for always supporting Keep Wakulla County Beautiful. And one of the missions of Keep Wakulla County Beautiful is to assist in community beautification projects. Okay, what am I doing wrong? Oh, the right. Okay. And at the request of Brent Thurman, clerk of the court, we formed a landscape committee made up of Betsy Smith, David Roddenberry, Commissioner Arts, Brent, and me. And we've worked really hard to propose a plan that would revamp the existing beds around the courthouse. This is a look at the overall plan, which includes the areas 1 through 5. We're focusing on phase 1 or area 3 for the initial planting this year, this month actually. Betsy Smith has done an incredible job of planting, proposing plants that are native, predominantly native, that are suited for the existing soil on the ground surrounding the building. And this slide is an overall view. We're going to, like I said, focus on area 3. Tom's Palms has planted 3 focal point palms at what is the entrance, which is the old back of the building. And as Brent explained, the back of the building began being used on September the 11th, which was always a plan if there was ever an emergency. So now it's the permanent entrance to the building. And we're going to have, if you can tell from the purple area near the door is going to be annuals, and we're going to make sure that the plants are as thick as they can be so we have as little maintenance. That was a big issue, so we're really excited that the plants will shade out any possibility of weeding, which will help cut down the maintenance. This is a list of the materials for this one phase, and we're asking everyone for support of this project. We need donations of both plants and materials to offset the expenses as much as possible. The list is specifically outlined as phase 1, and as you can see, there are requests for like the benches, and we'd like to have those things donated. If anybody is interested in donating those, we're really interested in having as many materials donated as possible. So if you're interested in helping, we're having a planting day on February the 4th, which will begin at 9 o'clock. We need everybody to come out and get dirty, help us plant, and we also, like I said, are looking for donations, monetary, materials. If you have any questions or need any help, please, questions, contact me. And my contact information, back up one time, is Keep Wakulla County Beautiful. Remember, planting day on Saturday the 4th. Keep Wakulla County Beautiful will supply all the tools, and we'll look forward to having you out there at 9 o'clock. And I'd like to thank our sponsors already, people that are donating, the Sarcinia chapter of the Native Plant Society, Marpan, the Iris Garden Club, and James Bennett. So I have copies of the projected program projects by the areas. We have a wish list if anybody wants a copy, and also have reminders of the planting dates. And I apologize for being late, but thank you. If you have any questions, just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate what y'all are doing. Up next, Commissioner Arts, you said you had a brief announcement?
Yes, thank you. I just want to make sure everybody gets this date on their calendar. On February 16th, there's from 6 to 8 at the Senior Center. There's a community workshop. This will be the only one we have to get community input on a proposed bicycle, pedestrian, and blueways master plan for the county. So for the whole county, there are proposals for where we're going to have bike paths and sidewalks and canoe trails and so forth. This has been developed by Kimberly Horn, John Sewell with Kimberly Horn. And we really want a lot of people to turn out, so I'm going to announce this probably another time or two, but it's February 16th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Senior Center.
Thank you. Mr. Edwards?
This time I'd like to introduce Louis Cerna. He's our new Planning and Zoning and Community Development Director. He comes to us with a ton of experience both in the public and the private sector, and we welcome him aboard to our team.
I've known Louis for years, by the way. I worked with him back in the 90s. Private sector. When he was at Leon County, he was always very helpful.
Louis, don't tell anybody else that you know Mr. Mayor.
Now, that's not a real good recommendation.
Get him to delete that part of the tape.
Well, this is not Louis' first visit to these chambers. Some of you may remember when we did the workshop on smart growth and sustainable communities, he was here and offered some input into that.
Well, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you.
Welcome aboard. Up next on our agenda, we'll come back to around 6:30 is Citizens to be Heard. If you'd like to speak at Citizens to be Heard, make sure you fill out a card. You'll be allowed 3 minutes to speak at that time. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. Do we have a...
Motion approved.
Awesome.
What, have we pulled anything?
We pulled agenda item number 6.
Okay.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye. The consent agenda passes. If we could look at agenda item number 6.
We're bringing this back to the pulling it off primarily to make sure that the board fully understands that this is the the final agreement with Applied Sustainability Enterprises for the Big Bend Bike Scenic Byway Plan implementation. What this is the final agreement, and wanted to make sure there was some misunderstanding as to where some of the dollars are going to be spent. There will be some dollars that will be spent not only here in Wakulla County, but in Leon and Franklin County. And at the end of the day, we'll have to maintain, particularly, it's just primarily signs, but we just wanted to make sure that the board was aware of this and make sure we cleared up any differences that the board may have.
When you say we would have to maintain, what does that mean?
Well, it's primarily signage.
Pam Portwood's filled out a card. Would you like to come in?
I mean, I filled out the card just to answer any questions, but I mean, the signs that we're talking about, we're not asking Wakulla County to maintain all of the signs. We will get under separate agreement from the landowners, the public land management agencies where the signs are going to maintain their own signs. We have a few in Wakulla County that would be maintained by us, but we're not asking this is a byway-wide project, so that's really, I think, the main clarification is that everybody understands this was a project for the Big Bend Scenic Byway as a whole, so it includes coordinating the whole project for the whole byway. But when it comes to the maintenance, we will be taking care of, Heather and I are working on a little agreement or statement that can be signed by those landowners that will show that they are responsible for maintaining the ones that are on their properties. And we're just talking about really small little tertiary signs that mostly are going on other signs, so shouldn't be an issue.
And I want you all to kind of remember this item when we get to my item.
Which item is, I'm sorry?
My item is about supporting a coastal access grant that also is in multiple counties. Because apparently it raises some liability issues that I've been told our attorney has tried to address through the contract with Applied Sustainability Enterprises. Is that correct?
No, not, I mean, for this one, this is an $80,000 grant. Wakulla County is the grantee, so you're contractually obligated to all of the conditions of that grant. that includes putting facilities in other counties, and the county administrator and I wanted to make sure that the board understood those ramifications. For larger grants that may come forward under the same format, we're working on a different solution to try to mitigate and spread that liability so that Wakulla County is not on the line for that. For the proposal that Commissioner Arts is bringing forward later, that's a much smaller grant. It's $15,000, so that's the risks. You have to weigh the risks in your mind when each commissioner votes.
Make sure I understand, Mr. Chairman, the 80,000, this particular grant, there are going to be signs in other counties,
Yes.
and you're going to work out an interlocal agreement or something with the other counties that they'll be responsible for those signs and not us?
Well, all of the land, these signs that we're talking about, again, keep in mind they're, I can't remember the dimensions, like this big. They're tertiary signs.
Right.
They just identify an attraction or a place on the byway as a Big Bend Scenic Byway attraction. So I would say 90% of these signs are going on other signs and on properties that are owned by the public land management agencies, like the Refuge, the National Forest, the State Forest, Tatesville State Forest has some, Wakulla Springs will put one on there. So each entity that is going to apply one of those signs on their property, either on another sign or with a separate post, will get, Heather and I are working on I would hope it wouldn't be a big contract, but just some sort of statement that would say that they will be responsible for maintaining that sign.
We had to do these back years ago, what is the birding byway or something?
Well, yeah, it's just like the Great Florida Birding Trail
I ran the road department.
signs.
We had to get a contract to maintain that sign, even though, because somebody else put it up, and it came before the board, and basically we maintain these signs because they're for our benefit, really. But I see it being similar. It wasn't a small contract either.
Okay.
But I mean, the issue, and this is from the grant document standpoint. Pam has taken the right steps to make sure that and we're working to make sure the county is protected. But if you had some landowner who completely was derelict in their duties, the duty would ultimately be on the county under those grant documents. So. And that's probably a remote risk, and I understand that, but
Very.
you guys did need to understand that. And for a larger grant, I would recommend a formal interlocal agreement with those other counties to divide up duties and liability. Because worst case, obviously, remote worst case, but worst case, the grant is, your grant agreement's violated and you have to pay the money back. The money comes back from the county, not from somebody else.
Just make sure that we're not liable for anything they do.
You are. Under the grant documents, if something happened and the grant had to be paid back, the county would have to pay the money back.
But for your point, make sure that we would not be liable for them.
It's also a risk I could win the lottery tomorrow, but that's probably not going to happen.
Exactly.
No, I understand, but, full
understand.
disclosure.
Yep.
All right.
First, I had the honor of serving as the representative for the Big Bend Scenic Byway Committee.
We appreciate that very much.
Quarter management entity. Jerry's now taking that responsibility on. I really enjoyed the meetings. I think this is a tremendous group that's been very productive, very effective, high quality work, and I'm very pleased. I think it is huge for this county what that group has been doing, and this is just another step in the process. I know Applied Sustainability Enterprises will do a great job with carrying out this grant. I'm looking at the scope of work, and I'm going back. I wanted to ask a question, and then I also wanted to go back to a conversation we had when we were at the TDC workshop.
Okay.
I know you're going to be working with a videographer to produce draft videos, and I was just wondering how you go your process, because citizens have asked me for selecting your videographer.
Well, it's something that will go through the CME and the probably the marketing committee for the Big Bend Scenic Byway for recommendations, and then, we move forward. We have in the past worked with Robert Seidler, who is a local videographer and has, great experience with what we're doing and some footage already in the can, so to speak, that can be used. So it's likely that we'll be seeking out his services again, but we do that in accordance with the purchasing procedures that actually say that particular service is exempt from the normal, bid requirements and all that sort of thing, because of the type of service it is.
And I think Robert does great work. I actually had the opportunity to be involved in producing several videos for community programs, and in those situations we would usually approach a number of production companies, look at their work, ask for proposals, and make a decision not based just on price or whatever, but I encourage you to maybe look to see who else in the county or these three counties.
Byway, right. It's a byway decision. It's a byway project. It's certainly a decision of the Scenic Byway Committee to look through that and make their decisions about who they.
Okay. The other thing, and this goes back to the workshop, I had indicated to you that an expert had identified to me that there was an error or a misrepresentation in one of the videos, and I suggested that maybe in addition to having the marketing committee review the videos, that they be reviewed by some technical experts, and I have gotten one person to agree to be a volunteer reviewer, and if you're open to having them review these videos, I'll line up several others.
I think that would be fine, but keeping in mind that our corridor management entity includes representatives from the National Forest, the National Wildlife Refuge, Tatesdale State Forest, all of the people who on their staff have the experts, and is where we gather a lot of our information. So, that the CME, the videos are reviewed beyond just the marketing committee. Usually something like that would be reviewed, or at least offered up at a CME meeting to review and that sort of thing. But I'm happy to look at any list of experts you have, and if they're wanting to volunteer, we're happy to do that.
Yeah, I know that those entities are partners on the CME. I guess I'm not always so sure that the people who should be reviewing the content of the videos are from those entities are actually always doing it. So.
Well, we have to rely on our representatives to represent their organization. I mean, I'm happy to take the list from you and get reviews by some, but we depend very much on the people like you who were a member, on behalf of the Wakulla County Commission, to bring to us issues from the County Commission and to also take back to the County Commission, things going on with the Scenic Byway. So that's how we deal with the National Forest, the Spring, all of our partners.
Right, and the video I think I'm talking about was a TDC project, not a Big Bend Scenic Byway. The commercials. But I've seen another one. This is something on Channel 12 or Channel 11 with the green guides. There's misinformation on one of those. I just think if we're going to be presenting information to the public, we need to make sure it's accurate. So that. Well, I'm just hypersensitive because of these errors.
I understand that, but first, I still don't know what the error is in the video that you keep. We've still yet to know what was the mistake, so we can even look at it to address it. And another is just remembering that at least especially in terms of the TDC and those videos that we did, those were for marketing. They weren't meant to be interpretive. They weren't meant to be... I
understand, but you don't want inaccurate information.
No, but again, I don't know what that inaccurate information is, so I might have a response to that if I knew what I was answering to. So that's really important.
Well, that person's willing to talk with you, so
that would be great.
I don't want to take any more time.
That would be great.
Any further discussion? Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the contract with Applied Sustainability Enterprises and authorize execution by the board chair.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you all. Next up on our agenda for this evening is our planning and zoning items. Item number 10, application for site plan SP 11-17, AutoZone. Heather?
Sure. Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, this is a quasi-judicial item. So in accordance with Section 24.01 of the County Code, each Commission member should disclose all contacts they've received from interested parties or their representatives. This includes the applicant, lobbyists, or any third parties concerning the application. In addition, any personal investigation or knowledge that they may rely upon in accordance with the Code. Commissioner Art?
Yes, I've met with staff, and I had a conversation with my appointee to the Planning Commission, and I visited the site.
Commissioner Moore?
No.
Chairman?
I have spoken with planning and zoning members, P&Z board members, and staff, and I'm familiar with the area.
No.
No.
Thank you. Anyone who may be testifying on this matter, including the applicant, if you're going to answer any questions, please stand up to be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Melissa?
All right. This item this evening, request approval to construct a commercial auto parts retail store. The property this is located on contains 1.53 acres, and this is located on the west side of Crawfordville Highway, just south of the CVS in Crawfordville. On January 9th, the Planning Commission reviewed this request and voted 5-1 to recommend approval. The future land use designation for the property is Urban 1. The zoning district for this property is C2, which is our general commercial area. It's in the C FEMA flood zone, which puts it at risk for minimal flooding. It's actually the best area we have in the county. There are no known wetlands or environmentally sensitive features located on the site, and the development will be serviced by central sewer provided by Wakulla County and central water service provided by the city of Sopchoppy. The proposed site plan has been found to be consistent with the Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Code, and the advertisement for this public hearing appeared in the Wakulla News on December 22nd, 2011, and the recommendation is option 1 based on the recommendation for approval from the Planning Commission.
Make a motion to conduct the final public hearing and approve application for site plan SP 11-17 based upon the recommendation of the Planning Commission that finds the facts and conclusion of law made by the board and any evidence submitted at the hearing hereon, and I do have a few comments about it.
Second.
Jessica, are there any cards? Thank you. Okay. Sure. If you Commissioner Merritt, would you like to, you have some discussion?
Yeah, I was glad to see that. My concern when I talked to David and Heather about this was cross traffic getting from like the CVS over to it. Now I see by the site plan there's an entrance in the back on Azalea, so that it's not doesn't connect straight to CVS, but I think that accomplishes our goal that we're trying to have our service road basically. You can get all the way from Carroll's Corner now to this store without ever getting out on 319, so I was happy to see that. I would ask if we can make sure we restrict all construction traffic to 319 and not be coming down Azalea. It's not really designed for dump trucks and concrete trucks and stuff like that. And this isn't a deal killer, but I would like to see an easement in the front, just 5-10 feet or whatever, just in case we ever have to move our sewer line. And you know, I've been preaching about this for years, that any time we have anything on 319, we need to at least ask for an easement. And the difference is if we have an easement granted to us, and we can move our sewer to that easement without having to spend a ton of money. And I think even just 10 feet utility easement fronting 319 and all,
Or sidewalks or anything else.
or whatever.
Yeah.
I know the stormwater pond will be in that easement. I'm not asking them to resign the whole site, but if we had an easement now, utility easement, whatever it is. And again, I'm not going to turn it down because they don't want to do that. I would request that be done.
Would you be interested in making both of those conditions?
I'll hear what the applicant has to say.
Would the applicant like to come up to the podium and introduce yourself?
There may be some things I don't know about.
Hi, Chad Whitaker, 6041 Elysian Avenue, Pensacola, Florida. I signed the speaker card to answer any questions.
You'll probably need to speak in the speaker.
Signed the speaker card to answer any questions, so I don't see that there would be a problem to dedicate an additional easement. I will have to ask our client if they would do that, but I feel like that's something that we could...
Again, I'm not asking you to move the pond or redesign the site. Just, you know, if DOT comes through and does eminent domain on your road frontage, at least we have an easement there. We got something in our pocket.
Yeah, I understand.
Now's the time.
It's easier to do it now than later.
I'd say 10 feet would be fine with me.
Okay.
I guess the construction traffic, you wouldn't have any problem with restricting it to 319.
I wouldn't think so with the...
Because your plan shows a temporary driveway out on 319, but you know the point. It's a county road. And we just...
Right. And I was prepared and agree with you on the access to the rear, and the other connecting up the parking lots was posing some issues with adjacent property owners and crossover and things, so...
Trust me, I understand.
Yeah.
I would like to hear more about that. And first, Jessica, do you have a pointer or something where you can show where the potential connection would be to CVS? Okay.
I can walk over there and show you.
I think you need to stay up in mine. Okay, well, could you, because it's my understanding that the planning staff and also the planning commission recommended having that connection, and I appreciate what Randy is saying about people having the potential to drive out the back on it and then down Azalea and then back in and come through CVS from the back. But that's a pretty long loop, and I have a feeling if people are in your parking lot and they want to go to CVS, they're going to go out on 319 and then go a short distance and turn left into CVS, and same for the people who are going from CVS to your parking lot. They're all going to go back out onto 319, which is something we're trying to avoid. So explain to me why this is something you haven't been willing to do.
I'm pretty lazy, Miss Arch, before he starts. I would certainly drive around back, not have to turn back on 319. That's a nightmare.
And I would agree that would be the optimal route to take, but there would be folks that probably would take the route that would not be desired. One thing is that the whole exit is on the CVS property, so it's really their property. It's not on a property line per se, like a lot of designs. When they came in with the design, if it was split in the middle, half was on us, half was on them, it would have been able to facilitate easier this type of request. And it also, their drive-through is very heavily used, and everybody comes straight out and exits on the Crossroad Railroad's highway. So it's technically on their construction drawings and things supposed to be a right in, right out there, because they have their main entrance back 300 feet or so, and everybody seems to not address that that's what it's supposed to be. There's a signage on it that says right out only, but people don't use it as such. It was designated by the state that we could have this entrance here, I think primarily because we're a destination point. It's not, I'm here, I'm going to walk over and go and buy an auto part per se. So with that said, our client wants to have their own entrance off of the highway. So, and if our fear is that if we provided a connection to the parking lot, there would be a lot of conflicting traffic points right there, particularly with the drive-through and exit, and it would just not have a good traffic
Let's
flow.
be sure, I don't know if y'all are talking about the same thing. Are you talking about simply connecting the parking lots and leave their entrance where it's at?
Yeah.
Okay. I think he is assuming that you want to move that
A
whole
joint entrance?
Right.
Oh.
She's not talking about moving your entrance. She's talking about simply joining your parking lot with CVS. And
I mean, that would be ideal in the way that it was done up at Walgreens and Capital City Bank, but the next best seems to me to at least have a connection between the two parking lots, so.
So he would only need, all he could legally do, I guess, is
Yeah.
pave to his property line, and then we'd have to make CVS.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
okay.
saying?
It's
Okay.
not our property to say that
Okay.
we can do that.
Okay.
I guess the question he's asking, though, is even though you can't go past your property line, could you pave up to your property line? And then we could ask CVS if they would object to.
Could we put an access easement at the end of our parking lot, and if it was ever facilitated, it could be done then?
I think that would be good. That way we would, let's say if we did that with CVS, and we had the easement, we could sit here and say, you need to do that because it's our easement. So I like that idea. At least get an access easement, and then if CVS ever redevelops, we can make them join the
If you don't have any great resistance to that, it'd be very nice to be able to bring it up to that property line, and then if CVS, if their parking lot is already to that line, then all you got to do is take the curb out, and you've got to cross.
There's probably 8 or 10 feet. I'd have to.
It wouldn't be that's not a big thing, but from your standpoint, if you could, bring us up to your property line.
The easement, Jerry.
The easement, yes.
Okay, I just wanted.
Yes.
Okay, because there was some
It looks like
landscape.
it's kind of at least wide enough for one-way traffic right there anyway. It's probably, 12, 15 foot wide there in front of the store, the driving line.
I think they line up fairly well. There's a little bit of offset because they park adjacent to the highway and then have a 24-foot driving lane
There's
to the rear.
a two-way driving lane.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too far. That's one
I
thing.
mean, I think that we can provide the easement, but I think that someone needs to study how that interchange will work, and it's something that we feel it has a lot of conflict points because of the exit of the.
I'm sure somebody.
So
can study.
Okay. Thank you. We have further discussion with the applicant?
Yeah, I have a couple things and I want to say this in part because it's our planning director's first meeting, and I want to communicate some things to him through this meeting, and also to other people who may be coming forward with site plans. One concern, and I don't know how the other commissioners feel about this, but we always see things at the very end, when a lot of money's been invested and there's little flexibility to make changes. And I know another developer had once said that there are other ways where we could see things in an earlier, more preliminary stage, so if we had strong feelings, you would know what those were, because otherwise it's like a yay or nay, or we can put some conditions on, but it doesn't seem ideal the way we do it. And then another thing is, this is in the heart of Crawfordville. This is our downtown. And so part of me is like, yay, we want more businesses to come and locate in our downtown, and I'm so glad that you want to do that, and I hope lots more businesses follow. On the other hand, I also want to start seeing site plans that look like a downtown. And this still is it's set back, and there's parking in front, there's no sidewalk that I'm aware of, and we've got the stormwater pond going right up into what might be a sidewalk area or whatever. It's just, we need, again, to our planning director, and we need to get moving quickly on setting our design standards, so at least everybody can get on board with trying to create this wonderful downtown that we all want to have. Now, with the stormwater pond, that's going to be surrounded by fence? Is that what I saw in here?
Yes, ma'am.
That just seems so ugly. And I really hope, I know there are requirements
It
for
is.
safety reasons
It's a
and whatever, but goodness, I really, in our...
We did not want to do a fence either, but because of when you go from 3 to 1 side slope to 4 to 1, it automatically makes you have to put one around it.
I understand, but boy, I hope we start figuring out ways to not have to do that on our beautiful main street. And I'd like to start seeing more plantings in our stormwater ponds, like we have the bald cypress out here. So again, I'm not I'm trying to make some general statements just using your plan.
We do have landscape planting material that goes along surrounding the fence area there in the front, and trees too, so
Yeah.
I think you saw the landscape.
Yeah, I did look at the landscaping. First, I have a question for staff. Well, let me ask you first. Who did your landscaping?
I did.
You did, okay. Were you aware that by preserving certain existing vegetation, you get some bonuses
Yes,
or
ma'am.
whatever?
I actually worked with the engineer I'm a planner and landscape architect, so I worked with the engineers to shift the basin around, making it deeper, but preserving some of the trees in the back. So it's kind of a catch-22. We ended up preserving almost 500 caliper inches of tree on the site, counting the trees that are in the right-of-way on Azalea Drive, and technically on our site over 300 inches. So we felt good that we were preserving some of the larger trees on site that we could, given that we're putting the commercial building on the site and parking requirements, etc. So that's kind of we could have made the basin not as deep and took out all the trees, but
yeah, I'm glad you did it this way. And I'm not always sure that our developers are taking advantage of those incentives, that if they leave trees, they can get some credits to do other things.
I had to work with the engineers to inform them of that too, but we were able to save several.
Okay, and a lot of those trees along the back on Azalea Drive are beautiful and old, and I'm glad you preserved them. Now, my last comment has to do with the selection of the plants in your landscape plan. And again, this is something maybe I hope our planning staff will try to encourage more. We're really trying to develop a sense of place in Crawfordville, and you want to use a lot of the trees that are indigenous here, and you heard in the courthouse project, their selection of plants is along those lines. If you drive on 319, there's some businesses that have done a beautiful landscaping job with live oaks and magnolias and pines and native grasses and whatever. And when I look at the plants that are selected for this, like 112 abelia, which I don't even know how well they do here.
I know that is.
I would much, dwarf yaupon or, wax myrtles or palmettos or whatever. There's any number of things that maybe would have been, better choices. So that's something else that I think I'd like to see us encouraging with our landscaping. But anyway, I'm glad to have a business coming to our downtown, so I'm probably going to support you in spite my reservations. Are you going to do those conditions on the easements?
No, I don't want to put conditions. I think they've agreed to the 10-foot easement. And, I think that's something we should address, like you said, right up front. I don't want to do this at a board meeting and say I'm not voting for you because you won't do that, but and then the other was construction traffic in the back. I think we can handle that in-house too. So, no, I don't want to put it as a condition. I think they've agreed to
But
it.
you're going to try to make that happen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And the easement going up to CVS for access.
I'm going to address to our planner a little something Ms. Arts mentioned. So we tend to disagree a little bit. Ms. Arts would like your parking in the back. I will resist parking in the back of any building as strong as I can possibly ever resist it.
Then it's not going to look like a downtown, Jerry.
Well, it may not be, but you won't have to go into the back of your shop to trade with them.
Hopefully there'll be a lot more people walking, and they'll walk in the front door.
Okay, any further conversations for our applicant this evening? We have 2 cards filled out. We're going to start with Mr. Bob Danzy. Thank you, sir, by the way.
Bob, did you stand? Did you?
I did. However, only about halfway through, once I realized that I had to speak. So
He
if
did
you,
stand, I saw.
I stood and I put my hand up. And I'm not.
I didn't see you.
I'm not going to say anything that's probably going to get us in trouble anyways. I just want to show my support for this as a business owner and as a realtor. I would like to see growth. You know, I think everybody knows I pretty much support growth. So I appreciate y'all getting things right. That's part of what you do, and I appreciate that. But I just want to support the project in general. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The final speaker this evening is Mr. Chuck Hess.
Chuck Hess, 112 Lake Ellen Circle. This is one of those projects that, you know, we want the growth in Crawfordville. It's a good location for growth in Crawfordville. Everything's, you know, you want to encourage this, except that it makes it traffic congestion. Basically, you're without having this easement from CVS to this parking lot, people are going to have to go out on the highway, just like you discussed. And I really think that we've got to raise the bar. We've got to make sure that these kind of issues are addressed before we allow a site plan to go forward. Now, you know, if you want to approve this one, you know, I can't knock it that bad, but it's just where we need to make sure that we have connections in these parking lots to keep people off 319 and stop having all the congestion. That site is a horrible, you know, the access in and out there is horrible. I mean, it's really a dangerous site already. Putting another entrance there is going to make it even more dangerous. We've got to keep the people off that highway, and I don't think most people are going to remember that Azalea Road at the back, especially if you're not, you know, a regular in town. So, bye.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the commissioners this evening? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Up next, general business, item 11, request board approval of an amendment to extend the professional planning and engineering consultant services with Kimley Horn and Associates through March 20th of 2014.
Thank you, Commissioners. This item is just to request board approval to amend Kimley Horn's contract for engineering and planning services that was signed back in 2009. There's 2 years allowable on the contract, and staff is requesting that we exercise those 2 years. Kimley Horn has done a lot of good work for the county. We anticipate them continuing. They've got some big projects in the hopper with us right now. OBBT, Occoquan Bay Trail, is one of them. And they're also working on the master pedestrian bike master plan. So staff is just requesting that we
I
move
move
forward
that
with.
we approve a 2-year extension of the contract with Kimley Horn and Associates.
This isn't.
And they're here. John Sewell's here if you need to speak.
No.
Any cards?
I'll say that this isn't a contract to spend any more money on, it's just to keep them on, you know, as an authorized contractor if we need them.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? We have a citizen who, Mr. Bob Danzig.
And I think it's important for the Occoquan Bay Bike Trail not to be switching in midstream. We've finally gotten that going. We need to just finish it.
Hi, Bob Danzy. That's my name. I don't think I introduced myself last time, but I don't know if I'm in the right place or time here, but if we're going to renew the contract, look, when we have a project, I don't know if this can be worked into or not. I will not say very much about it, but I got to give you the idea, and if you can run with it, then it'll be great. When somebody does a project, they pay double fees for roads and for stormwater. And I know that Kimberly Horn is involved with that, to where we have to hire somebody as a developer, and then then we have to hire somebody for y'all. And I know that they're involved with that in some form or fashion. I'm trying to create a situation where red tape is less
So if we're going to renew something with them, can we just make them the official people that we use for some of that, just to create a situation where there's not so much cost in developing a property? It's double fees that I'm concerned about. This may not be the appropriate time, but if they're involved, then I'm going to bring this up most of the time. At some point, it's going to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dancy. Any further discussion from our board? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Got our speaker.
Moving on to Commissioner agenda items, and for those who've joined us late, there's been some agenda changes to our Commissioner agenda items. We're going to start with Commissioner Moore's items, and they're going to go in the order B, A, C. So we're going to start with Commissioner Moore's item, request board consideration and approval of a resolution in support of Wakulla County exemption from gag grouper season limitations.
Okay, this is a request for the board approval of a resolution regarding the gag grouper fishing season rule amendments. An analysis on this is the proposed resolution acknowledges that increased limitations on recreational gag grouper fishing will have a negative impact on the tourist fishing industry economy of Wakulla County. And this is an industry that has already suffered a devastating blows due to the oil spill and the slow economy. While recognizing the importance of preserving the gag grouper stocks in the Gulf, this resolution requests that the FWC consider providing an exemption for the state waters of Wakulla County from any new limitations on the recreational gag grouper fishing season that may be adopted by the FWC, and that is the Fish and Wildlife Commission. In addition, the resolution requests that the Fish and Wildlife Commission conduct public input meetings within the county prior to adopting any rule amendments in order to obtain public comment and ensure members of the fishing community and other local businesses in the county have an opportunity to provide comments to the commission.
Second, if that's a motion.
Yes, that is a motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion before we hear from citizens? We have several cards. We'll start with Mr. Alan Marsh.
Thank you, Commissioners. Alan LaMarche, 73 Janet Drive in Crawfordville, actually Shell Point. What this issue is, and when I say we, I'm talking about locally, people of Wakulla County have always had a spring and a fall grouper fishing season because that's when our grouper are here, our gag grouper. We have very shallow waters off of our coast in Appalachia Bay, and the gag grouper frequent our waters during the spring and fall months. During the hot summer months, our gag grouper go way off deep into federal waters, and we have historically had a tremendous bunch of folks who come in from South Georgia primarily to fish for the gag grouper during the spring and fall months. What is happening is that the Federal Marine Fisheries has asked the State Game and Fish Commission, or Fish and Wildlife Commission, who has total jurisdiction over our state waters. They have asked them to make all of Florida's Gulf Coast the same season as their federal season for gag grouper. Well, the federal season for gag grouper starts in July. And in July, we have no keeper gag grouper in our state waters. Now, other parts of the state do, along the Gulf, in the deeper, where they have deeper coastline. So, if the Fish and Wildlife Commission were to go along with this request by Marine Fisheries, what it would in effect do is it would eliminate those folks who enjoy fishing off of our coast from ever having a gag grouper season. It's akin to the Fish and Wildlife Commission saying, okay folks, if you like to shoot ducks, we're going to give you a duck season in July when all the ducks are in Canada. It's the same analogy. So what we are requesting, and some of us will be at the Fish and Wildlife Commission meeting on February 8th when they will make this decision, is that they exempt from that standardization those counties, including Wakulla County, who front on Appalachia Bay, that have the shallow water gag grouper to inhabit, where they inhabit our waters during the spring and fall months. And if they wish to close our season in order to have the same number of days in July, that's fine. We don't have any problem with it because we don't have any fish here anyway. And so what we're asking is this this body to support this movement so that the people who will continue to come to our county, those of us who do enjoy fishing for these gag grouper, will be able to continue to fish for them. Any questions?
No, sir.
Thank you.
I think we're all in support of it.
Next up is Jenny Brock.
My name is Jenny Brock. I live at 311 Old Magnolia Road. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. It is my understanding that inconsistent regulations could cause significant enforcement problems, substantial public confusion, and lead to higher catches than projected due to illegal fishing, either knowingly or unknowingly. This could lead to more fish being taken in the state waters. It could hinder the species rebuilding, requiring more drastic restrictions in the federal waters. And I'm not real sure that I understand why certain counties would be exempt from state regulated species. So I hope you'll understand that the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission operates fairly similar to you guys. In fact, they have their research biologists, and of course they have the law enforcement wildlife officers and so forth. But they simply brief the commission. I believe at this point, it used to be a 5-member commission, but since Marine Fisheries has been added, I think it's like a 7-member commission. Those are the people who actually make those decisions. So we don't need to keep beating up on our biologists and wildlife officers for something that they actually didn't decide on. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Bob Danzy?
Thank you. My name is Bob Danzy. This just simply creates more tourism. It's just cut and dried simple. People that want ecotourism then somehow will find a way to be against this. They've made it to where we can't have manufacture anything here because it's so precious. And I agree. So now we can't fish because we can't fish. So at some point it doesn't make any sense. I would ask you to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chuck Hess?
Chuck Hess, 112 Lake Ellen Circle. Now, you have a lot of work going into making stock assessments and how the gag grouper are doing. And that's what the Marine Fisheries Commission has done, and they have a harvest rate where they expect that the gag grouper will survive, and you'll have consistent harvests if we meet those harvest rates. Right now our harvest rate is too high. What they're trying to do is reduce our harvest rate so we can rebuild the stocks of gag grouper and return to the fishing more normal and what we typically would like to have. You can't have a piecemeal areas or piecemeal regulations if you're going to maintain these stocks. And that's what this is about. Getting the science is there. If you haven't seen Chris Koenig and Felicia Sanders from the Marine Lab talk about what's happened to the gag grouper in our area, then you need to go see that talk, okay? Because the gag grouper is in trouble and our stocks are declining. And, we need to make sure we have consistent regulations to protect them. We all want to have a, fishing industry here, and this is how you do it. You make sure you protect it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Richard Van Eater? Uter? Munster? Sorry if I...
Richard Van Munster, Panacea, Florida. I participated in the oyster relay, and I was a representative on the boat for the Wakulla Fishermen's Association. And the first day out there, they had a man there that was with the state, with the FWC. He was a data person. And we got to talking, and I asked him about the snappers and groupers. And he said, well, you know, he said their data stinks. He said, if you know how to read the data, he says, you'll find out that they were, I think he said they either put a camera down, a diver down, or a fish trap down. One of the two. But wherever they did their test, they did it on sand bottom. That's like looking for groupers in the Sears parking lot. See? And I heard them admit to that in Panama City when we went to a meeting room. They had no science. And if you read the article in the Democrat 2 days ago, you can read the guy said that. We don't know whether we can trust our stuff or not. And they're lying is what they're doing. They have a political agenda, like they do with most fishermen, and they're looking for a problem because they keep their job by finding one. And there's nothing wrong with those fish. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Mr. Chad Hansen.
Good evening, Commission. Sorry it's been so long since I've been before you. Thanks for this issue tonight and allowing us to speak. I am Chad Hansen. As you know, most of you know, I've spoke to most of you about this. I used to work for the FWC, used to collect the data on the field, and I'd be happy to talk inside about that. I used to work in the office of where rules were developed. So for about 10 years altogether, and currently I'm employed by the Pew Environment Group. And so we advocate for fish conservation and sustainability in the Gulf of Mexico. And I've been following the grouper issue since I was in the field, in the management office, and now for the last 3 years with Pew. And there's a stock assessment process that involves data collection, that involves many sources of data, FSU, marine fisheries, which is the feds, the state, FWC, pulling nets, counting fish, and there's several data sources that go into an assessment. And the people that do an assessment are federal scientists, state scientists, and academic. And so states heavily involved with the data collection and analysis of the data. 2009, it showed that the population had dropped off by about half following mid-2000s, and it was currently right now it's at about 40% of a healthy population. And so there's something that needs to be done. The population is in decline. It may be improving in some areas, but it needs help. So there's been this couple-year-long process of developing new management measures, fixing the rebuilding plan to get catch levels where they need to be with the science recommendations, and that involves the state and the feds. And it involves the state because the states, we catch grouper in state waters and federal waters, and about a third of all the recreationally caught gag grouper off Florida comes from the state waters. So without the state's cooperation, you can't rebuild a population. You can't if you don't have state cooperation, the federal waters, there will be more restrictions in federal waters because they have to make the math work out essentially. So if there's more fishing in state waters, if there's inconsistency, then the federal waters, there'll have to be more restrictions out there, and that does nobody any good service. So this is a cooperative effort, a cooperative plan to rebuild a gag group population. And to carve out a certain area for Wakulla County is not only does it make sense for the population to rebuild the population, but it doesn't make sense for the fishermen either, from the aspect that rebuilding the population improves the fishing opportunity down the road, so it provides a healthier population of fish down the road. And I do want to point out that the Monroe exemption that's been thrown out there, there's an exemption from Monroe County. I just want to clarify that Monroe County, the Keys, is in part of the South Atlantic jurisdiction, and so it's not a special exemption that's been carved out. When they make rules, they want to clarify that Monroe County is not part of the Gulf, so they don't apply. It's for the South Atlantic, so it's not a special exemption, and I don't see how the state would possibly do an exemption for one county. And we'll be going to the commission, the Wildlife Commission, in a couple of weeks to again, ask for them to go consistent, which will be the third time in a year on GAG. So it's nothing new. It's what to do. We've got to rebuild the population. Thank you very much. If anybody has any questions, I'll entertain that.
Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Moore.
Mr. Allen, would you come forward and tell us your opinion of what we just heard?
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I can tell you this. I was Assistant Chief of Law Enforcement for the Game and Fish Commission. I've trained Marine Patrol officers, wildlife officers, spent 40 years in natural resources related law enforcement and security work. My recreation, most of my recreation time is devoted to the Gulf.
Mr. LaMarche, I apologize. I should have probably let you come up and speak.
Thank you, but I've been invited up here. I'd like to finish up, and I'll do it real quick. I spent a lot of time on that Gulf, okay? A lot of time. I'd like to ask Jenny Brock, let's see, Mr. Hess, Mr. Hanson, how much time y'all spend out there? I'm out there a bunch, and I catch a lot. I can tell you, we have the grouper.
Yeah, Mr. LaMarche, I apologize. I shouldn't have let you come back up when Mr. Moore, or Commissioner Moore asked you to come speak. I apologize. It just goes against our form.
I'm sorry, Alan. I apologize to you, Mr. LaMarche, also. I didn't realize.
Thank you. I wish I had come last, and then you'd have got some facts.
I'm so sorry.
And I apologize for the bad form. Discussion by the board, not calling up additional speakers.
Okay. I have some discussion on that then. I would like to compliment Mr. LaMarche. He, in doing what he does, he fishes almost every day, or he brings people from all over the state of Georgia and Florida into Shell Point. He goes out almost every day. He does not charge any of these people anything, so he's an ambassador for our county, a very good ambassador, so I'd like to congratulate you for that, Mr. LaMarche.
Mr. Brock, if I may, I've listened to and done a lot of research, listened to a lot of the science. Where I'm at with this is I'm frustrated that the FWC exists as they do, because they absolutely have there's no boss over them. The governor doesn't even have any authority over the FWC. I just took a fisherman that I'm very fond of here, Leo Lovell. He and I went up to the legislature and talked with Marty Coley for about an hour about 4 or 5 weeks ago about the issue of the FWC and the power that they wield. And the problem I have is that, and I think we should go further than just offering this. I think it ought to be not just Wakulla County, but I think it ought to be that we're against any of this. That's the way I feel. Because the FWC, through that voter-approved resolution or whatever you call it that we did that changed the it's part of the Constitution now.
That's not
They have
this
put
item.
wait, let me finish, Ms. Arts. They have put the commercial fishermen out of business. Absolutely put them out of business. We have killed at least 10,000 jobs in this immediate area of our state. At least 10,000 jobs. And now they're going to put, and it was all for the namesake of the recreational fishermen, like you, Mr. LaMarche. And now they're determined they're going to put the recreational fishermen out of business. I believe that. And pretty soon, none of us will ever have a heritage about fishing, because we won't be able to talk about fishing anymore. We won't be able to go. I mean, if I can fire my boat up and I can go out and find a grouper to catch, and guess what? I can keep 2. That's ridiculous. And we're going to overfish it? I don't think so. And that's where I'm at. That's why I'm going to support this. And I wish we would go further, Mr. Moore, to say we just oppose it, period, rather than just Wakulla County waters.
We can only oppose what's in our waters.
Well, then I'm all for that, for those reasons.
Thank you. Commissioner Merritt?
I'm ready to vote.
Commissioner Arts, any comments?
Yeah, I guess my first question is, and this is to Commissioner Moore. Why have you proposed that we request an exemption? Do you think that's realistic, that FWC, that sending this resolution forward, that there's any real chance that we can get an exemption? I'm asking.
You always do your best. If you don't take the first step forward and do your best, you've not gone anywhere. Talking with a fisherman, it's a well-known fact that just about everything the fishermen feel, the FWC is opposed to.
Okay, well, you answered my question.
But Ms. Orth, let me chime in. I'm not sure why you'd ask that. I mean, why not try? What does it hurt to try? I mean, you want to get grants to grow pine trees.
Well, but I don't want to. And I'm trying to ask. I've been trying to ask people if this is even legal, and I don't. If you want to be effective, then you need to have a proposal that is likely to succeed. And one of my concerns about this is that I don't think this can happen, and I feel like we're misleading people if they think, oh, here our commission is going to send this resolution forward, and it starts to look to me more like just kind of pandering to get the local fishermen to think we're doing something when we know it's not going to work. So
one could make the same argument about the resolution we just passed about pulling groundwater out of Wakulla County. Is that really going to make any difference? No, but that's how we feel. And I'm not going to have a long conversation, but I believe Mr. Moore is representing his district. He lives in the coastal area. He was probably approached by his constituents.
Exactly.
He's doing his job.
Exactly.
Okay,
if enough counties do what we're doing, then maybe I believe that they're not going to do anything. I agree, because I know the power they wield up there. Okay. There's nothing that's going to change until we get something done with the Constitution. Nothing's going to change. But by golly, I'm for fighting them every tooth and nail we can.
Well, the other part of it is even if it was a realistic possibility that they would give us an exemption, which I don't think it is, then there are going to be other counties requesting exemptions, and so...
Why would we not try? Why would we not try?
Well, I'm not going to propose something that makes us look stupid, or that makes us look like we are... like we don't have a clue what's going on.
I'm going to propose against every ill that I see. Okay. Whether I can accomplish anything or not, I'm going to expose.
Well, you can be Don Quixote then, or whatever, Sancho Panza, Don Quixote, and I'm going to try and be effective at things. So that's, and I don't want to be sending things up if it's absolutely illegal, unconstitutional, impossible, whatever. And some people have told me that's the case, so I don't know. But let me get to what my big concern is. And I have a different opinion, I think, from some people. I come from a background that involves a lot of science, that has a lot of respect for science. And so if I hear that there are scientists from multiple agencies who are saying that since 2004 our gag grouper population has dropped in half, then I'm not quick to dismiss that. Now, some of you don't seem to believe that, but if you don't trust the science, then which makes sense? To ignore it and assume they're wrong, or to be cautious in case they're right? And so my concern is, I think we have overfished grouper. I think there is a serious decline in the population. And since I believe that, I'm convinced of that, whether you agree or not, then for me the question is, well, what should we do? Should we let the population rebuild and do what we can in the short term to make sure that all of these fishermen can fish with plentiful grouper out there 8-10 years from now? Or do we let everybody just fish away until we've done serious damage to this population, and then we're talking about not just a couple years of more restricted fishing, but we're talking about no more gag grouper fishing, maybe for... I've seen it happen in New England. They have those populations overfished. And, you know, so from my point of view, I want to see gag grouper here in this area plentiful for the long term so that our recreational and commercial fishermen can do what they do. To me, it's the equivalent of, you know, you either pay now or pay later kind of thing. Most people get their oil changed in their car on a regular basis, so that even though maybe they don't have the money right now or it hurts their pocketbook, but they don't want to have to pay for a new engine down the road. And that's, you know, it's worth a little short-term sacrifice to make sure that this population rebounds and that people like Mr. LaMarche can keep going out there. I just think so to me it's pretty compelling. If you care about fishermen, I don't see why you would even propose this.
No, that argument makes no sense. And the reason I say this is because the commercial fishermen, this was the whole scenario they played out. All of our mullet are gone, all of our commercial fish are gone. We've overfished it. We got to do something. And we were sold a bunch of junk, and the citizens voted on something they didn't even understand because it was misrepresented. And now counties like us in Wakulla and Franklin and the other surrounding counties the people who approved that net ban were the people from South Florida who they didn't fish for a living. Ask these fishermen who make a living who now can't make a living anymore. Is that fair to them? That we had a net ban, and it's never going to be lifted.
But that's a different item. We're talking about
It's not
the
different.
grouper.
It's not different, Miss Arts. It's the same principle. We're going to let them come in and outlaw that we can't catch grouper in our waters in the springtime when they're abundant here. That's the principle of it. Is my point. I understand the science.
It's so funny. We don't close the season. We just have them fish we just open the season when there's no fish there. That's real easy to do.
All right. On that note, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Pass 4-1. The next agenda item at 6:30, we will have citizens to be heard. Do we have cards for citizens to be heard? Thank you. Jenny Brock?
Jenny Brock, 311 Old Magnolia Road. Again, thank you for allowing me to speak. I just want to let you know that there is a League of Women Voters meeting on Thursday at the Public Library, 7 o'clock. But if you're hungry, come at 6. Thank you.
And lastly, Jerry Lucking. I'm probably saying your last name wrong.
Hello, my name is Jerry Lucking. I live at 141 Rebel Road. Thank you for having me. I'm the president of the Farm Homeowners Association, and we have exactly 149 parcels in our development, and so that equates to probably 1 or 1.5% of the Wakulla population. In 2006, Mr. Revel and Mr. Noblin turned the association over to the members of the development, and from the beginning of that time, there were meetings of once a month, and speed was always a concern on our roads, and it still is. We're a bedroom community. We work, we play, we ride our bikes, our kids play there, et cetera, et cetera. So really, there's no big need for speeding in our community. About 2 months ago, I gave each of the commissioners a copy of my newsletter along with a cover letter. And as a matter of fact, I contacted a couple of the commissioners, and I've had a meeting with a couple of them. And I also left messages for one of the commissioners 4 or 5 different times, and I never got a reply. And I felt kind of let down about that. At any rate, on September 6th, which was a marathon meeting, we started at 5 o'clock, and we got on the agenda about 10:30 at night. We had a dozen people who were for our speed control devices in that area, and as it turned out, like I said, we got on the agenda about 10:30. It was passed without a problem, and so consequently, all of us left except one person, and that person was late in getting the card out, and she had the opportunity to speak probably 15 minutes after everybody left. When that person went back to our community, she kind of poisoned that particular little group, and I believe there were a number of phone calls made to the commissioners, and the next meeting was September 19th, and that was rescinded. The approval for our speed control devices was rescinded. And I cannot understand how that can happen, because if you go to the Public Works Department right today, there's a sheet in there that tells you how to go about asking for speed control devices. And along with that, our Sheriff's Department did a survey. We did the necessary footwork as far as getting petitions signed by the people fronting the roads. Everything was taken care of, and the procedure was, and the criteria was met. And so consequently, I don't see how it could not be left approved. However, what ended up happening shortly thereafter, I sent the newsletter out myself, delivered to each of the homes, and the next day...
Mr. Luckin, can you try to wrap it up?
Sure. 44 people ended up signing, and they said they wanted to make sure our money was spent correctly. We wanted to spend the money. As that turns out, that's roughly 30% of the population. So 70% must be for it. Consequently, if you were voting for your jobs, if you were voting, if you got 70% of the votes, you'd be happy. We're going to have a meeting on the 22nd of February. What I'm asking from this commission is to end up approving, putting on the agenda, and approving the fact that we can have speed control devices. Then we'll decide at our meeting whether we're willing to pay for them or not. If we're not willing to pay for them, it becomes a moot point. But I don't want to go before my group of people and say, I want to vote for something if it's not going to be approved anyway. So it's been kind of a hassle. I've dealt with Mr. Fleming, I've dealt with some of the commissioners, and each person kind of passes the buck. So at this stage of the game, I'm asking that you approve it. I'll get a cost from Mr. Fleming, and then I'll take it and have it voted on the 22nd.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to me, and anyone have a question? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Back to our regular agenda. Up next on our agenda is item 13A, request board consideration and approval of a resolution in support of eliminating marine net mesh limitations.
I make a motion that I request board approval of a resolution regarding the marine net mesh limitations.
Second.
An analysis of this is the proposed resolution acknowledges the concern and expresses support to the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission for reviewing and rescinding the 2-inch mesh limitation. It further requests that the Commission review and consider alternative means of satisfying the requirements of the Florida Constitution that would have fewer unintended secondary effects on the Gulf fish population.
I think that this vote's probably going to go similar just for the audiences, so we keep it brief, please.
First speaker, Jenny, is there discussion before we have the speakers? First speaker, Jenny Brock, Ms. Jenny Brock.
Again, Jenny Brock, 311 Old Magnolia Road. Thanks again for letting me speak again. As you said, this is in the state constitution. I realize the mesh size must have been negotiated and litigated and what have you, so I don't know how difficult that would be to change. But I'll go ahead and tell you that in the summer when I'm not hunting, how often am I on the Gulf? Maybe 4 to 6 days a week. I do have to take some time off to go to board meetings, other places. But usually I'm fishing or scalloping or whatever. And I do understand that you may have some frustration with not knowing one person to go to for the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, but they do have a boss. It's just like our county has a boss, 5 commissioners. I believe they have 7, and they are the ones who make the decisions. So you can't just say there's no boss up there. There's 7 of them. And I realize that this net ban issue is a concern, but in the last probably 8 or 10 years, we've been able to go out and catch a redfish almost every time we go out, or throw a cast net and get a nice dinner of mullet. And there was a time when we could not do that. So if it's bad, it's also good. And I'm sorry for those that it's such an inconvenience for.
Thank you. Mr. Bob Danzing?
Hi, thank you for letting me speak again. I suppose this is going to be second verse. First verse was a few minutes ago. She says that, I'm going to say this. The bottom line is, like I said, they won't let us do anything here as far as jobs. They kill everything because of the environment. Now you can't fish. Now stop the fishing. This morning, it's just so ironic that it happened. This morning, I'm on a porch. I'm seeing two guys out there with a net, and they're trying to catch a mullet. And the guy is doing this more than he's doing this, or he's dropping with his left hand and he's throwing little fish out with his right hand. It's insane. So please, I support this, and please vote for it. And Ms. Arts, I appreciate you being passionate, but it's just, I heard a guy say this week that, almost everybody that's eating a carrot will die. Statistics just sometimes are not what they're cracked up to be. It's whoever created the statistics.
Thank you. Mr. Chad Hansen?
Good evening again. I'm not speaking on any official capacity, just as a person who's been at the FWC for about 10 years and had some, on the ground, on the water experience and in management. And so I have that perspective. And I don't want to get to the rationale of the 2-inch and all the different nets and the rules and stuff. And granted, the fishermen have been put in a very bad position by the Constitution. And that's really the crux of the matter. I would suggest, rather than taking an adversarial position on this, to invite the staff down of the commission. If you need to know who to bring down, I can tell you that, and invite commissioners themselves down. There's 2 in town. There's 2 right around, in Tallahassee and in the area. Have them come down, have an open workshop, and discuss. Throw up a olive branch and say, hey, can we come down and talk about this? We have issues. We want to look for solutions, and bring them down and see if there's a path forward with that, and have them bring their perspective. I've been in the county since '99, and I've read the paper, and I've been involved with a number of issues. And when this issue is in the paper or put out in the public, it always seems to be just one side. And there's a couple other different sides that are out there that have never been aired in the local media and in the public's mind. And I think there's a side to the story that needs to be told. And I don't think tonight's the appropriate time to do that, or I'm the appropriate person to relay that. But 70% of the voters did vote for this thing, whether it was misrepresented or not. And there's a whole slew of recreational fishermen out there that really like what's happened. And so I'm not saying that's good or bad either way. I just think there's another perspective that should be aired out there. And if you invite the commission down in a non-adversarial and a constructive fashion, in a mode to look for some way out of this, or some solution, or some different alternatives, that seems to me more constructive than being adversarial. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chuck Hess.
Chuck Hess, 112 Lake Island Circle. seems like the net ban was a more an emotional issue than a science one. There are good reasons for having, restrictions on harvest at some levels, and this is why it went into place, because the recreational fishermen wanted that, and there's a lot more recreational fishermen than there are commercial fishermen. But I'm curious that you're asking science to answer a question that you, in the previous agenda item, you rejected science to answer the question, and it just seems like a mismatch. There are experts in this field that work on this, that know about this, and statistics don't lie. People say that all the time, but if you actually use them correctly, they tell you that there's a difference or an effect. That's what it means. That's all statistics are. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Allen Marsh?
Thank you. I'm not a commercial fisherman. I don't make a dime off the resource. Nobody's paying me to say anything. But I when I'm not taking kids out to fish in my boat, I enjoy mullet fishing with my cast net. And I use basically the same size mesh in my cast net that the restriction calls for. And I fish around the marsh areas, and I have made throws in a hole and bringing up my net where I got so sick to my stomach because I had gilled in the approximately 50 speckled trout that were in there, okay? That got gilled in the same size net. Now, we've got so many mullet out there that if I gill small mullet, it doesn't bother me, because I'll just take them and use them for fishing bait or whatever. But the people who do make a living off the mullet, I can understand why they would get upset to have to kill these small mullet as they get gilled in their nets. So this is why I empathize with them, because I saw what it did to the speckled trout, and how, as a sport fisherman. And if they had a bigger size net, then these smaller fish would go through, and they would just simply capture the ones they went out there to catch anyway. And that's the bottom line. Thank you.
Keith Ward?
Keith Ward, St. Mark's, Florida, 5th generation commercial fisherman. I've really been offended by the N-word being used here tonight, because it was not a net ban, it was a net limitation. We have never asked one time since we've been involved fighting this fishing fight for the past 15 years, have we ever asked to overturn the amendment. We're not asking to overturn the amendment, we're just asking to adopt a different rule. That right there, if you'll read that, shows, if you want to use your science, as you call this science, all this wonderful stuff, the science proves everything the commercial fishermen have been saying for 15 years is right. The science test that was done, the only test that was ever done, that was tested, the FWC done, that tested 2-inch net rule, was done on my boat, on my dollar. And let me explain to you what happened. 98% of the fish that we caught with a 2-inch mash net was bycatch and was illegal. Not just was it mullet, it was speckled trout, it was pinfish, it was every other little fish that's there. Now the science proves exactly what we're saying is true. All we've been asking since that time is for a mash size to allow the juvenile fish to escape. That's all we're asking for. We're not asking for 5 miles a net. We're not asking for $1 million from anybody's pocket. All we're asking for is you give us what the voters said we could have. The voters said it was a net limitation. It also said we was allowed 2 500 square foot nets of any. It didn't have a mash size. There's nowhere you can read that constitutional amendment up and down. You'll never find a mash size in it. It's nowhere in there. We have done the olive branch leaf with the commission. We have took them on the boat. We have proved everything we said is true. The only difference, they could have this meeting in February the 8th,
and the commission can say, you know what, we're going to change it, and they could change it tomorrow, they could change it that day, and it could be done. There's nothing that could ever be done to change what they do. Because the simple fact is, the only thing that goes against us is the CCA may sue them. Well, we've been suing them for 15 years and we ain't got nowhere. They have created an agency that has so much grown and is so out of control that everybody never have they ever been, anybody can tell them that. If governor appoints them, they're appointed by the Senate. After that, nobody can test their rules. We've gone through this for a long time, and I can explain to you. All you got to do is look at that, and if you can read and look at that right there and understand what's been done. And I have the test, I have all the studies and the proofs from the test that we've done that shows you exactly what we've been saying. Everything that we've said is a complete truth. And I just appreciate y'all taking this up time and now trying to get something done. Like I said, if you don't try, you never get nothing. You have to continuously try. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ronald Cromwell. Last but not least.
He signed both of us up on both of them. I'm on Jimmy.
Thank you. We don't. No. Next, I apologize.
I appreciate the opportunity. Let me tell you the issues here. There's page 3 there. On the third page there, Ms. Arts, look at it. At the bottom of the page, the state testified in 1997 that a 2-inch mesh net would be a 95 to 98% catch rate of large fish and a 2 to 5% catch rate of juvenile fish. Do you know what the truth is? It's a 98% catch rate of juveniles and a 2% catch rate. That was the court case. I got the entire court case with me now if you need it. But that's just a small excerpt from it. There was a mistake made. And I also took the state to the Supreme Court, January 1996. Let me tell you what they said. We did the ballot summary, did a very extensive research. What did the people vote for? And the Supreme Court ruled, this is the ruling of the Supreme Court on Article 10, Section 16, said that people sought to limit rather than prohibit net fishing in Florida. There is no net ban. There is no net ban. Long story, that's how the FWC was created, to create a genocide of these people. It was never a scientific issue, it was simply a political issue. It was a redistribution of the marine wealth from the poor to the rich. When they talk about science here, I'm in the sports fishing business. When we went to Key Largo, the fishermen all sat over there, and so I went and got in the middle of the CCA, their opponents. And I started talking to those people. I talked for 2 time periods on the substance of the issue here. And then the chair lady, she said, the CCA director, would you like to rebut Mr. Crum? And he said, no. I said over and I talked to those people and I said, hey, if we change this thing, we can enhance sports fishing 30% in 12 months. This is a pure deal. And from today, I'm glad to say that Collier County has already passed that. We got 15 counties attempting to pass it right now. I wish my county had been the first since we've been doing the fight here, but Collier County, 1 million population, has already passed it, the home of the governor, and was delivered to our people today. But we want to couple this and deliver it to the governor. With those petitions, we got several thousand petitions, thousands of signatures, and we're going to give to them. But if we stop the killing of these juvenile fish and only target the large fish, in the winter months, they have to be a 2-pound fish or bigger to market. They have to be a 2-pound fish or bigger. At St. Pete to Collier County, we know of 10 million fish being caught. 8 million was thrown back dead. 8 million wasted. 8 million that could have been propagating. 8 million roe fish that, because of the rules of the FWC, mandated the killing of those fish. And we need to stop it. I saw 930 speckled trout in a 2-inch mash seine. 930 juvenile fish, 5 inches. A legal fish has to be 11 inches, legal mullet. You start killing at 5 inches. You took the big nets from them, and you give them a little net that's 3 foot deep. You put them in the estuary and the nursery with a little fish. And that's where you come up with a 98% kill ratio. I brought evidence here, DVDs from the meetings. The chairman of the commission said, yes, we can give you the nets. The general counsel said, yes, we can give you the nets. The Florida Marine Institute got DVDs here, tapes, pictures of him, that he said, yes, we got to change the mash size, but it's not changed.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
I have something to say, of course.
You're not going to call anybody out?
No.
Commissioner Moore.
The thing about this that bothered me is it's so obvious, listening to Mr. Crum and his friends, as to the problem that is. It's so obvious that you say, well, why cannot someone else see this? And I'm always asking the question, what about this do I not understand? Because it's such a simple system. It's so obvious, according to Mr. Crum and the fishermen. So I asked Mr. Crum, I said, Mr. Crum, why don't you get 5 fishermen, 5 FWC, and some referees, and go out on the coast and catch some mullet, and verify to those folks and to the rest of the world that this is actually happening. It's not a difficult thing to do. Mr. Crum says that it's a 98% kill rate. Maybe it's only 85, but that's too much, or 70, that's still too much. But what is wrong with the FWC that they can't send 5 people down with some referees and go out with Mr. Crum and his 5 people and do a study? Do a study with, with referees or judges or whatever. And then, but it's my understanding FWC will not do that. And if they won't do that, why won't they do it? It doesn't make sense. It tells me that Mr. Crum is 100% right, not 70 or 80. He's 100% right. And then you ask, well, why do people not like the FWC? Well, you don't like them because of that. They need to show up and show us where we're wrong. They show me where they're wrong, I won't vote for Mr. Crum. They show me where Mr. Crum shows me where he's right, but I'm going to vote for Mr. Crum because they won't show up.
Commissioner Stewart?
What I would recommend, I'm going to vote for this. It's not going to do any good, but I'm going to vote for it. It's worth the effort. But I want to suggest to all of us that will do it is to take a fisherman, whether it's Mr. Ward or Mr. Crum or Mr. Lovell or anybody who will go, you take somebody separate and go to it like I did to what my intent was to go, and I'm still after her, was to get Miss Coley, and she's promised me she'll do it. I'm trying to get an audience in front of the governor, and I want to take fishermen with me because I'm not a commercial fisherman. And get in front of his desk and stand that up there and say, now try to understand why we're 10,000 people out of jobs. And until if you will take the time to make an appointment with a representative and go up there and sit down at their desk for whatever time they'll give you and exploit it, she understands. She said with her own mouth that the problem is that they have so much power that it's been legislated in the Constitution. We cannot change it. We cannot change it until we can get it back on the ballot, which is a political hot potato because enough people won't go up there and beat those representatives up to make them do it. And that's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take. It's the 5 of us doing that, and the 5 from another county, and the 5 from another county until they get sick of it, and maybe they'll put it back on the ballot when we re-vote on it.
In my opinion, they absolutely have to see this happen. It's good for us to talk about it, but it's my opinion that we need to see this happening, that you need to have just what I said, 5 and 5 and a referee.
Commissioner Arts, do you have any comments?
Yeah, the other item that we talked about was pretty clear cut to me because I spent a lot of time trying to look at the information that I could and learn as much as I could about gag grouper and I do have confidence in science, and I worked in medicine, and you can't work in medicine and not have confidence in science because so much of medicine is based on science. So anyway, but this issue is something that I have been struggling with and trying to understand ever since I moved here. And I have talked to Ronald Fred Crum. I have gone to the legislative delegation meetings and listened to him make his presentations over and over at those meetings. I've gone, the FWC had a workshop here. I went and I listened, and the fishermen talked there. I've talked to a number of fishermen on the phone at length, trying to understand. I wasn't here when this whole constitutional amendment was put into place. I've heard a lot from the fishermen's, our local fishermen's perspective, and it hurts my heart that we have so many people who have been hurt financially and or put out of business and struggling. But I don't feel like I have the full picture, I'll be honest, because I'm also being told by people that ever since this went into effect, I mean, yes, it sounds terrible that we're losing little fish needlessly and bycatch, but I'm also being told we've had big rebounds in a lot of fishing stock or populations. And the other thing I know is this has been going on 15 years. So one, I don't really understand that well. Secondly, it's been going on 15 years, and there doesn't seem to be any progress. And I've been told this is DOA at FWC. So it might make people feel good to pass this and send it on up there, but again, I think more what Mike's talking about, if you want to work on changing the constitutional amendment, that probably makes more sense than some of this resolution. But I like the second part of it, Jerry. I like the part where you're talking about trying to look at what can be done, solutions to help try to, what if anything can be done differently now within these constraints. So of all the people who spoke, Chad Hansen's suggestion of having a workshop where the FWC and people who know this history and why this was done and what, if any, effects, pros and cons they've seen makes sense to me. And also taking more of a kind of working together approach as opposed to an adversarial approach, because I know people at FWC hate our county. They don't even like to come here and talk to people.
That's mutual.
Because okay, but see, then you can't work problems out. And I'm making generalizations, but people they feel beat up there. I don't know. I just think that this approach hasn't been getting us anyway, and this seems like a lot more of the same, except for maybe the second part. So I'd rather see something like Chad Hansen's proposing. That's the only kind of thing that I think has any real possibility of moving us forward.
I just want to echo, I welcome any new ideas, and I think Chad's suggestion, bringing the FWC back again, it's always good that if they'll come and explain it, talk to the fishermen again, welcome the workshop.
I hate to disappoint you and say something, but I think our job as commissioners is to represent our constituents, and I believe the overwhelming view of the county is that we support this. That's what I believe.
I agree.
That's why I'm absolutely going to support it. That's our job.
Trying not to talk too long myself, I think one of the things we can do is bring people together, and I think we should be working that effort to bring people to Wakulla. And I know that the FWC people have heard from Ronald Fred and from Commissioner Ward and these people, so I just we need to get that conversation keep going and stronger. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Passes unanimously. The last of Commissioner Arch's items.
Commissioner Moore.
Sorry, I apologize. Thank you.
On to something non-controversial.
Yeah.
Request board ratification of the Wakulla County Sheriff's Office sign erected to name the Wakulla County Sheriff's Office building the David F. Harvey Criminal Justice Center. Commissioner Moore.
Now, when you do that, are you making the motion?
I'm not. I'm just reading the title.
All right, very good. I would make the motion that we request board ratification of the Wakulla County Sheriff's Office sign erected to name the Wakulla County Sheriff's Office building, the David F. Harvey Criminal Justice System. Although the sign that was erected to memorialize the naming of the WCSO building after former Sheriff David Harvey may have been technically deviated from the board's previous direction, the sign is a fitting tribute to Wakulla County's former sheriff, and in keeping with the spirit of the board's vote. Accordingly, to put to rest any issues with regard to this matter, I recommend the board to ratify the Wakulla County Sheriff's Office actions in the erection of the sign naming the Sheriff's Building the David F. Harvey Criminal Justice Center.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion from the board before we hear from citizens?
I'd like to say my issue, I remember the plaque conversation. My whole issue was money, that we don't spend a lot of money on this. If I had known that the employees were paying for it, I don't care if they put a bronze statue out there. It didn't cost us any taxpayer money. That was my whole concern. And I wouldn't even realize till after the fact that the employees were paying for this. So I think this meets the spirit of what we were trying to do. The wall was already there. They replaced some letters on it. I have absolutely no problem with this whatsoever.
I agree.
Had I known that the wall was there, I would have made that recommendation to begin with, because a tacky plaque for somebody who has done so much for so long for this county is just not proper.
Let's hear from some citizens. I have a card here without a name on it. I'm assuming from emails I received. Mr. Hugh Taylor, did you file a card? Would you please come and speak? There's not your name's not on the card. It's just got a line where you're.
I did.
No worries.
Need these, I guess.
I had to guess which person this would be. But I guessed well, I think.
Bad handwriting? That's the only course I passed in medical school, Miss Winter. It's bad handwriting. And I need these, I guess, because I didn't eat enough carrots. Although the nuns told me something different. This thing smells. There was a long and involved discussion with input from the Sheriff's Department just a while ago. Unless Mr. Moore was talking to and pointing at his invisible friend against the wall. An 18 by 22 inch plaque was placed on the administration building. That was agreed to. The sheriff's office agreed. In the sunshine, don't miss the point. Out of the sunshine with no public scrutiny, Sheriff Crum put something quantitatively different, a 4 by 16 foot wall with lettering in front of the whole complex. Sheriff Crum took full responsibility for the action. It was discovered that Sheriff Crum might have broken Section 30.15 of the Florida statutes, which states that sheriffs have to obey the directives of their boards. But the sheriff did not apologize. That's bullying behavior, and it looks like you're going to cave to that behavior. This guy stole your lunch money, and you're not going to do anything about it. When objections were raised on these issues, Commissioner Brock decided to fix it, but not as a real commission should fix it, as in take the thing down. But in the sense of, okay, I give up. Here's my lunch money. Everyone's concerned with bullying these days. So why in the world would the sheriff want to bully the commission as he did? He just got $600,000 for anti-bullying programs in the schools. Why not just set a good example? That's sad on everybody's part. All the arguments you've heard or will hear tonight pale beside the point of the actions of the sheriff and your caving to the behavior. I paraphrase Ronald Reagan and invite you all to join with me in saying, Mr. Crum, tear down that wall.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Mr. Bob Danzy.
Thank you for letting me speak again. As I suppose you know, my name is Bob Danzy. There's a lot to say here, and probably 3 minutes wouldn't do it. But the first thing I'll say is I support the sheriff. The sheriff was the sheriff for 35 years, and honestly, if you wanted to sleep with your doors open, you could. That's probably better that you didn't. But that's a general, I think, idea of what he did for our community. And for people to come out and to be beating this up like they are, it's like a witch hunt. The county, y'all didn't pay for anything. I didn't pay for anything. This private people did this. And I think the public just needs to know this is just absolutely insane, and it's just absolutely going after the sheriff, and it's demonizing y'all. And it makes absolutely no sense. If you want to talk about following the rules, well, first of all, I just want to say I support the sheriff in his sign and what they put up, and it didn't cost. Private people did it. Leave it alone. He deserves it. I'm going to get off track a little bit, and I'm going to be short about it. But we talk about following rules. I remember when we renamed Martin Luther King Highway, or road, whatever it's named. It wasn't done properly. But nobody said anything about that. That vote wasn't taken properly. The whole thing wasn't done. And if somebody brought a court case about it today, it could be overturned. Just that easy. So you can't want some things done because it's a way of opposing the sheriff one way, but then when you wanted what you wanted, you go about however you want to do it and you do it. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Alan Marsh.
I'm just here to tell you that Wakulla County is very fortunate. I know a lot of law enforcement officers throughout the state. I know all the sheriffs, okay? All of them. I've been to their association meetings. I know the chiefs everywhere, police department, state agencies, attorney general's office, prosecutors. They all respect and admire Sheriff Harvey for his service. They all know and respect Sheriff Crum. Wakulla County is very, very fortunate. When your peers look at you that way and admire you so, you know that you are in a very good situation. Thank you.
Let me say one more thing, just so I'm not... The wall was already there. The wall has been there for many, many, many years. The lettering simply changed from Wakulla County Sheriff's Department to whatever it says now, David F. They changed the letters on the wall. I just want to be clear for the public. We didn't build a wall with the taxpayers' money or with the employees' money. The wall was already there. And I don't want to beat this to death.
I can't believe we're here doing this. I mean, we got so many bigger things, bigger fish to fry, no pun intended. I mean, look, we're talking about 10,000 people's jobs, and we're worried about what a stinking sign says. The man deserves it. Anybody who served the county and could get reelected that many times, and people loved him. Not everybody. It doesn't matter if you love him or not. The fact is, he did a service to this county. He spent his life doing it, and I think that he's well deserving of it.
Ms. Arts, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I actually found it reassuring when I learned that it had come from the employees' fund. I thought that was, and I wish that had actually come up in the meeting when it was originally proposed. And just to refresh people's memory, at that meeting, it was Commissioner Moore's third item to name something after somebody. And he was making me nervous that we were going to see a whole lot of these things coming forward, and I had to think about when did it make sense to me to name something after somebody or not? And after thinking through a lot of examples, I set my criteria as this. Either the person has built the building, paid for whatever it is that they want their name on, or they're deceased, and preferably both. And so that's my I said it at that meeting, and that's my criteria going forward. So I did not approve this item originally on that basis, and I'm not going to ratify it because it doesn't make sense for me to do that since I didn't support it to begin with. So,
Ms. Arts, you better take a pill, because I'm going to continue to bring resolutions for people I think are deserving.
And I'll vote for them if they paid for whatever it is or they are dead.
Take a pill.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Moore, for bringing this up. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-1. Commissioner Merritt, item 14A.
May we take a break? Would that be?
I've got another meeting I got to be at, and I need to leave as quick as we can get done. Please, I really do have a meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
All right. Mine is about the septic. In our infrastructure component of our comprehensive plan, we have specifications saying about our septic nitrogen treatment standards and our own wastewater treatment plant standards. I brought this up several times. I actually had it tied to the wetlands, but that went nowhere, so I'm bringing it up again now. And I'd like to see us work with the health department. This study here came out November 4th, 2011. It's the management options for protecting the springs. I want to see us back up. If we're going to protect the springs, let's protect the springs. But let's put a little science into it. There's different soil conditions that weren't taken into account. There's different watersheds, groundwater depths that we just threw the baby out with the bathwater. This board did, which I'm not, but said everybody has to have one, period. And I don't think that was right. I also want to look at changing when you're required to bring it up to performance-based standards. Even FEMA has a rule that says you can rebuild your home if it's less than 50% of the value on it, and we don't even have that exemption. If we add one chamber to a septic system, you got to bring the whole thing up to performance-based standards. I would volunteer to work with staff in the health department. I know all the players involved. I'm an engineer. I designed hundreds of these things, and I'd be happy to lend my expertise at no charge to help work on this. So my motion is to direct staff to work with the health department to draft revised language for the comprehensive plan to address findings in the recent released nitrogen study influence on Wakulla Springs.
Second for discussion.
And I'd also like to integrate other sources of nitrogen, which is if we're serious about the springs, nobody's addressed fertilizer in it. If you look at the math in the study, one septic tank equals 27 pounds of nitrogen a year, from what I've seen coming from the health. That's about a bag of fertilizer. But we don't worry about if someone's using 10,000 pounds of fertilizer on a cow pasture that's going to run right into the ground too. So that's my motion.
Do you want to speak before we have to hear from the citizens?
I can wait.
We have several citizens to speak on this issue. The first of which is Richard Gray. Please remember to limit your comments this evening to 3 minutes.
I had actually told him 2. I was wrong, Rich. It's 3.
Okay. Hi, my name is Rich Bray. I currently reside at 1115 Domingo Drive, Tallahassee. A little bit about myself. I'm a biologist. I have degrees in bachelor's degrees and master's degrees in biology. I'm not here to toot my own horn. What I'm most proud of is that I was born and raised right here in North Florida. I love Wakulla Springs. That's why I'm here tonight. I'm not getting paid for this. As you all know, there's thousands of pages of data out there concerning nitrate loading, nutrient transport, so forth, impacts on Wakulla Springs. I've spent the last 4 years reviewing that data, And I've summarized it in a professional document here that I think will be useful. My request to you guys is that you review the current scientific data and try to blend science with common sense. I don't think, well, it's obvious that the data does not support that septic system owners and property owners be penalized for a problem that they clearly did not create. All the data points to the city of Tallahassee for creating the problem that we're seeing of heightened nutrient levels in Wakulla Springs. The data does not lie. City of Tallahassee has agreed to spend $227 million to reduce their nitrate loading down to 3 milligrams per liter by the year 2015. That's a clear admission of guilt, if you will. But they're also trying to do the right thing in their defense. I think we're headed in the right direction. The ordinance pertaining to septic systems does need to be readdressed, and hopefully this document that I prepared will help you in doing so. You'll see a chart in here that incorporates actual data from the city of Tallahassee comparing central sewer versus on-site septic systems. Once again, the data does not lie. Here's actual data and figures for your review. I've got a list of references here that backs up my findings and recommendations, and we need to do the right thing. We need to do the right thing for the environment. Property owners do not need to be unjustifiably penalized, and performance-based treatment systems are not justified on every single job site.
Would you say that again, a little louder, where we can hear that well?
Performance-based treatment systems are not scientifically justified on every parcel, every project.
Very good.
The data supports that. I've got references here. You know, I'm an environmentalist, a staunch environmentalist from North Florida. If the data indicated otherwise, I'd be singing a completely different tune right now. But
thank you, sir.
This board doesn't pay attention to data, though. That's the sad part.
Well, and
Mr. Bob Danzig.
And I picked up on that, and I appreciate that. Believe me, I've spoken at county commission meetings all over the state.
I take offense to that, Ms. Art.
I'm teasing based on the comments that in our last discussion. Forgive me. I was trying to make a joke.
I've spoken to county commissioners all over North Florida, and your use of good old Southern common sense is very refreshing. And I appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
Being a good old North Florida boy myself. And
are you going to provide us all a copy of that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Please.
As he hands that out, Mr. Bob Danzig.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for spending the time to do it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. This may be my last opportunity tonight, so I appreciate your time. It's been a long time since I got to come to a meeting. I didn't support this issue when it came up before, and it was voted on by a board that was moving in a direction, I believe, probably to control growth. And I think that was irresponsible. I think they control growth, okay, but the problem is the natural system of economics was going to take care of it anyway. So now we're in a situation where we're going to have to back up. We're going to have to use common sense. I agree. That's basically what I work on. It's common sense. And you can't tell me that every place in this county deserves a septic tank. First of all, it costs that much, and then that does the job that it does. There's decent dirt here that'll filter it. Now, the second thing I want to say, and this is just for whatever you do in the future, is some places probably do need it, and we may all agree on that. But just give us some variation. Just give us the opportunity. If I want to fix my septic tank, then I don't have to put a whole brand new one in. I mean, that's the bottom line, the whole thing in a nutshell. Let me fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ben Withers.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ben Withers, Panacea, Florida. I'd like to take just a minute to talk about what I think Randy is trying to do. The current ordinance that we have in place in Wakulla County, as we interpret it, would allow for us to modify if there was a system out there that needed a modification or repair. We were able to use the permitting process to modify it, and somebody in the community is now tried to reinterpret the way that language is being read, and is called the health department down on the carpet about it, and so they're trying to make it where we can't have any kind of repairs out there, that if there's anything or any kind of modification that needs to be done to a septic tank system, it has to be done. You have to just throw your old system away and come up to a standard of performance-based treatment systems. That was never the intent when the industry, the septic tank industry, and the community was out here putting this rule together. We were working with the health department. It was supposed to be a spirit of let's work together. Yes, we want to protect our environment. Yes, we want to do what we can to clean up. But recognizing that we can't put the undue hardships on our community, our people out here in this community, which is exactly what is going to happen right now if we continue down this path. I spoke to Pat Juarez and Keith Lawhorn via email in the last few days, and I've asked them to stop, call an emergency meeting, get this commission involved, whatever it takes. We need to repeal the ordinance. We need to stop this ordinance, at least on a temporary basis, until we can all understand what it is we were originally trying to do. We're not trying, you're going to put septic tank contractors out of business, and here's what's going to happen. If we continue down the path that we're heading down right now, what's going to happen is people are going to turn their licenses back in and say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't need a license anymore. I'm just going to go help this person fix their system on the weekend, because people are not going to do what they're trying to do, the undue hardship that they're going to do. So we're hurting ourselves. Now, I'm a board member. I'm a FAWA member with the Florida On-Site Wastewater. I'm a board member for the state. I represent the North Florida in this area. We currently are trying to promote less inventory. Let's find out what we have in this state of Florida. There's currently 2.3 to 2.6 million septic tanks in the state of Florida. Nobody knows exactly what's out there. There's people that have a good idea, but we're promoting, let's figure out, homeowner, what do you have out here? Do you have a septic tank? Does it have a bottom in it? Is it, we're going to do an inspection. Let's start a process of educating the people out here to find out what you have. And that's where we're moving. That's where we're moving to. And then if people know that they have a tank that has no bottom in it, or a crack thing that's leaching into the river or to whatever, they're going to fix it. 90% of the people are going to get a repair permit and fix it. But I know I'm getting past my 3 minutes, but we just need to take some immediate action, this board does, to start the process to stop this ordinance temporarily. You're hurting a lot of people out here that are trying to survive.
Thank you. As he sits down and Sonia Hall comes up, Commissioner Merritt wanted to say a quick word.
Briefly, there's nothing we can do tonight. This language is buried in our comprehensive plan. We cannot vote right now to change the rule. It is what it is. I don't blame Keith or Pat one iota. I think they've been working with people over the past several years. I could read the language of what the comp plan says. To me, it says if modifications or repairs are required, you have to bring it up to standard. They've been helping people out. Some of these modifications weren't really required. So, but anyway, it's not their fault. Just to tell everybody on the septic side, it's not these guys' fault. And I believe if they could speak honestly, they'd probably agree with what I'm saying.
Ms. Hall?
Sonia Hall, 84 Evelinda Street. I've concurred with everything that's been said before. I don't have any scientific data, but I have a lot of common sense, and I can tell you that it just cannot be. All of our soil is not the same, and I cannot believe that this system should be required throughout our entire county. There are people that won't pay for the new systems. There are many more that cannot. and you're going to have a lot of homemade repairs out there. I mean, this is a very serious matter. It affects everybody in this county, not just homeowners, property owners, tenants, everybody who has a roof over their head, unless they're on sewer. And so if you can't get this changed, then I would suggest that you start working very hard to get sewer throughout our entire county.
Thank you, ma'am. Teresa Beidler? Well, I'm not sure I said your name wrong.
Teresa Beidler.
Beidler, I apologize.
355 Sweetwater. And my big concern is not just that this is a mandatory thing for anyone who has an issue, but that it was instituted a while back, but suddenly they want to enforce it. They write a letter, they say, okay, today we're going to enforce it effective tomorrow. And it's like, okay, well, nobody gave fair warning. So everybody's doing what they think is the right thing. They're doing the modification, they're doing whatever. And then suddenly, but you can't do that starting tomorrow. And so that's a hardship on people who have been planning homes, buying properties, doing things, thinking, okay, well, this one has an existing septic, I've gotten, this, that in order, all I have to do is go get my permit, everything's good to go. Well, no, it's not. And then in the letter, it's not our problem, is it, that it was improperly interpreted? I mean, okay, so fix it, but give time to fix it. If you're going to interpret it the way you meant for it to be interpreted, give us time. Don't just say, okay, but tomorrow, suddenly we're going to change the rule. And then it doesn't apply to everybody. It says right here that not everybody, their septic must not affect the water the same as those of us who can pay for it. Because if you can't pay, guess what? It doesn't affect you. That's what the letter says. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Keith Moore?
Hello, I'm Keith Moore. I'm a carpentry teacher at the high school. I work with Mr. Stewart down there also. I've just recently purchased a piece of property down here, and in the process it has a septic tank on it, and from what I understand I can have it modified before all this came into effect. But I just hope y'all can see fit to, with the leniency on it, not leniency, but to, ratify it and give us some time to get everything straightened out. And I want the environment as much as anybody, but I think there's got to be a better system than what we're talking about. And somebody was saying that, the performance-based septic system, has an electric going to it, and because it burns electricity, well, homeowners going there and flipping it off, and what good is it then? It's worse than the septic system that you have now. So, if y'all are going to, improve it, I think there ought to be some kind of a thing saying that, people have got to leave it on if that's what y'all are trying to do, and it's going to be cost effective. There's just going to be a lot of money, and people who can't afford it, are exempt. And I feel for those people. I know how they are. I've worked all my life also. So, but anyway, just wanted to say that. Thank you,
sir. Lastly, Mr. Mike Sundin. See, I guess. Every time I guess wrong.
Close. Mike Sundin from Tallahassee, 133 Loveridge Court. I'm a septic system installer with some of those who are here this evening. And kind of tell you a little joke. It's kind of end the evening. There was an Indian that wanted to embrace new technology, and so he told his squaw, "Let's go ride the train, the iron horse." And so as they went out in this new adventure and rode the train, about 20 minutes into the trip, he told his squaw, "Squaw, me thirsty. Go get me water." And so she obediently went and got him some water. She came back and she drank it. He drank it. About 20 minutes later again, "Squaw, me thirsty, go get me water." She went and got him some water, came back, and he drank it again. About another 20 minutes, and he's thirsty again. "Squaw, me thirsty, go get me water." She goes to get him some water and comes back, but no water. He says, "Squaw, why not you get me water?" She says, "White man sit on spring." Now, the white man has been sitting on the spring, and we're concerned about that here in Wakulla County. We're concerned about it because how do you deal with it? We want to embrace technology as an industry, and we've put in a lot of these performance-based systems. We want to embrace it to solve a problem. I didn't grow up here in North Florida. I moved into the area. But how many of you remember what the Springs looked like in 1993? How many were at the Springs in 1993? Did it look good in 1993? Did it look bad in 1993? I wasn't here. What did you think?
Not as good as it did in 1950.
All right. How did it look in 1970? How many were here in 1970?
I can't raise my hand for that one.
Did it look pretty good in 1970?
Sure did.
All right. I went to a symposium that was presented by the 1,000 Friends of Florida back in 2010, and they presented a little study showing nutrient concentrations of nitrate, nitrogen at the springs since 1965 to 2005. Do you know that the highest level of nitrates in the springs, according to their study they presented, was in 1993? It was at 1.7 milligrams per liter. Since 1993, the city of Tallahassee has improved their discharge quality and stopped fertilizing Sprayfield. Since 1993, according to the study that was presented at this symposium, nitrate levels have dropped to 0.5 milligrams per liter, which is the same level as it was in 1970. All right? Nitrogen levels are the same as in 1970, according to the symposium. I have asked over and over again, why are we trying to solve a problem with technology that nobody said occurred in 1970, spending this money when we have this much improvement at the springs? I want to use technology for things that actually are going to help the springs, not waste money on things that are not going to help the springs.
Thank you.
Can I ask Pat, would you mind, I hate to put you on the spot. Also, I want to say something before anybody accuses me of helping my contractor buddies out. I personally make money doing these engineering on these septic systems, so any reduction in performance-based systems is money out of my pocket. So I'm doing it because I think it's the right thing. I don't benefit, I suffer. Pat, I think I understand the situation you got put in. Some information came out, so maybe somebody complained or something, and I'm sure your superiors or whatever said you need to start following the letter of the rule or whatever. Is there anything we can do, in other words, to go back to the way it was being enforced before? Is anybody we can? I mean, if I can call somebody, I'd be happy to. Or if
my understanding, and I'm just going to repeat your question again. If you wanted to know what it would take to get back to what we were doing a month ago,
a week ago, yes, a month ago, yes,
like that. My understanding, this is a county ordinance and county rule, and the state has no input on that at all. That we instate the state rules and laws 100% all the time. My understanding that things you can do is you can suspend one of your rules and regulations, ordinances. You could repeal it, or you could amend it.
We can't suspend.
But
it's a comp plan. It's in the comp plan.
It's a comp plan. I'm sorry.
It's not an ordinance. If it was an ordinance, we could do it right now. But it's
right. So I guess is really more a question for you all. Is there anything they can do?
Commissioner Merritt and I discussed this. The proper way to take something out of the comp plan is the process that he's initiating.
The process we're doing now. But I didn't know if there was anything we could do with the health department. I know we don't have any control over them whatsoever. But my personal feeling, I think the word, if it's required, that means it's absolutely necessary, and a modification is not necessary. It's kind of like, I guess the best analogy I can have is tires. Say we voted that everybody now has to have blue tires when your tires are required to be replaced. Well, that means if your tires aren't wore out, you can go get a new set because they're not actually required to be replaced. I know that maybe it's not the spirit of what but it's helped a lot of people out that couldn't have afforded.
I can tell you that when the original comp plan went through, the land use amendment went through, we tried to do an implementation, and the answer we got back was resoundingly from the government: you do not have the authority. There's nothing in here that says there's a phase-in period or a lag period. You have no authority to not be enforcing the ordinance the way it is written right now.
I'm going to have a question. Then let's take it out of the comp plan.
That's what I'm going to do.
That's what we're trying to do.
I'm talking about tomorrow when people get up. Is there anything we could do? Can we vote on an interpretation of the word required? Or, I mean, please.
Let me get a word in edgewise here. Here's the issue I have. Like this lady said that got up and said, we've been doing it for 5 or 6 years this way. How come somebody interpreted that? I didn't. Somebody did, and we decided to go down that road, and I appreciate that we were, you and I've had this discussion before, that we were letting them make repairs unless they just absolutely had to be replaced, and then they had to do a performance-based septic tank. I can't believe, if I take a document, now, attorney, you have to help me here, if I take a document and I read it, my interpretation is going to be different than what Randy's is. So why can't we challenge whoever this person, whoever we're calling God, that's taken and interpreted this? Who are they?
We do.
Why do we have to, on the next day, stop doing what we were doing because some person read something that they? I don't understand that. I can't get past the idea that right now, tomorrow, you got to start doing it the other way. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm trying to apply common sense, and I know that's scarce, but if somebody help me understand why we can't have some leeway here while we extract this out of the comp plan. This is crazy.
Pat, I have a question. When this was first put in, there was a phase-in period, correct? Wasn't there a phase-in period?
No. Not to my understanding for this piece,
no,
ma'am.
No. I'm going back to the original.
The original, no. That's what we were trying to figure out when we were supposed to implement it. My question. And at that time, there was a different board that was in place, and it came down to that was the answer, is because we had proposed that we were going to put it off till the beginning of the next month to give everybody a chance to do to get any last minute stuff in. Our legal staff, the county's legal staff, came back and said, you don't have that authority. That's not written in there.
This was back in like 2006?
2007.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's because we were planning on a phase-in. It started.
I still haven't got my question answered.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'd like it answered. I was interrupted, but anyway, tell me why we got to believe. I mean, who did the interpretation? I don't know who that person is.
I'm not aware. I don't remember the person who
exist?
originally sent this email out. If that's what you're speaking to, what the comp plan says is that the county shall maintain its land development regulations, the provision that existing septic systems shall be replaced with performance-based septic systems when the existing system fails or otherwise requires replacement or modification as determined by the Department of Health.
There you go. There's the loophole. Now, I'm interpreting, if I hear as determined by, that gives him a great deal of leeway to say, well, it just needs another line put on. I mean, this is where common sense, it doesn't make sense, and it don't pass the logic test for me, Heather. That's what I'm saying. That very word right there interpreted by me, I'm not a lawyer, but that certainly gives him leeway, the health department, to say, you can go extend that line, or you can replace the line, not replace it with a performance-based septic system, which we've heard from this gentleman that may or may not be good for the environment as it is.
I can assure you that Pat would just as soon have it back like it was a month ago.
Well,
I had to guess.
Then let's get somewhere here tonight is what I'm saying, Randy.
I told you my interpretation. You told me yours. But can we do anything?
I think we can.
When did the bottom?
Trying to just keep our.
The bottom line is when did you start enforcing this deal? Why did you begin? I'm not fussing at you.
That's all right. You can fuss.
Okay. One day you decide to send out a directive that we're going to do it this way. Why did you do that?
The reason we did that is we found out that ordinance passed in 2009. We were unaware of that.
Who told you?
We found out from emails that were going back and forth that we got a copy of the ordinance in 2009. It is my office's responsibility that we didn't start in 2009. We did not realize that had passed.
So you're getting emails from somebody that says, hey,
we're getting
we're going
emails
to call your attention to this, that you're not doing this, so you need to do this.
Well, we called our attention to that ordinance. We got that ordinance, read the ordinance. We asked for legal interpretation from the county staff and attorney at the same time. Now, we did not start that second. We had meetings with the county administrator and said, this is what our plan is. We wanted to make sure that all the board knew about it. So we asked Mr. Edwards if he would speak with all of you. Keith sent out an email to all of you, again, to try to keep you informed and in the loop, because we didn't want to send something out without at least you knowing about it. We had conferred with the county attorney to make sure that we felt we were doing the interpretation correctly. And that's when we felt we had no choice in time.
I understand, because it was brought to your attention, and when something's brought to your attention that you may not be doing, you've got to change and go ahead and do it.
Yes, sir.
So,
Heather, you were saying, I think Commissioner Stewart was asking what our options were if we want to do any immediate change, and I was getting the impression you were saying that. Well, I'll let you. What was your official statement?
There's a statutory process for amending the comprehensive plan, and I don't know any other way around that.
And I'm saying, Mr. Chairman, don't go down that road. I say that if we can have the intestinal fortitude to sit here tonight and make a decision to move forward until we can get this, and I agree with Randy, this needs to come out of the comprehensive plan. I've always said that. I came and fought against it when it was approved. My point is, what I just heard, the way I interpret it, is, and we got to have the intestinal fortitude to do it, is to say that you have the latitude pad to keep doing what you've been doing. And I'm not picking on him. I'm frustrated. I still haven't got the answer who interpreted it. Who interpreted this way?
All right, if it's legally possible for me to make a motion saying here's our interpretation, would that do any good? First of all,
the risk you run.
He has the authority to make the interpretation.
I think
the risk you run if you go outside of a plain reading of the language is that you could be sued for doing something that's inconsistent with the comp plan.
Everything we do up here, we can be sued for. I'm tired of hiding behind the attitude that let's don't do anything because we're scared to death because we're going to be sued. What I just heard read is a logical. It says, read it to me again, please.
The county shall maintain in its land development regulations a provision that existing septic systems shall be replaced with performance-based septic systems when the existing system fails or otherwise requires replacement or modification as determined by the Department of Health.
As determined by the Department of Health. That's you.
Right.
To me, if I'm reading that gives you enough leeway to say if it's just a minor repair, a line failed. Why in the world would we call somebody like this gentleman who's bought a house? Not because I work with him, am I trying to help him?
I understand.
But just using him as an example, it's got an existing septic system on it. Maybe I think all it probably needs is another line on it. Why in the world would we cause him to have to go spend $7,000 to $8,000 to $9,000 for a performance-based septic tank that may not work as good as what he's got now? That just don't make sense, people. Why can't we?
I agree with you 100%.
I agree with you also.
How can we do something about it now? When it says fails, that means, I talked to Keith about that certain things trigger that. If your drain field's leaking, and I'll be honest with you, here's what's been going on. People feel that something's fixing to happen in their septic tank, they'll go get a modification permit, which was allowed, or if you're going to build a new house that needs a little bit more drain field, you'll modify it before it's needed. That's what happened. I've done it on new houses before. Because people can't afford an $8,000 septic tank when they get one that works just fine. That's what changed. He never has allowed people to do repairs. I've designed 2 or 3 performance-based systems where they replaced the entire drain field and tank because it was failing. Rightfully so enforced, I think, that portion of the law. The little loophole is the modification.
And we have a definition of what is a modification. I believe, and I'm not trying to guide you in any direction to do anything, but I'm just telling you, we have a very specific definition of what is a repair and what's considered a modification.
And that's an opinion.
No, that's not an opinion.
Well,
that is in state statute. And it, as an example, just give you, Randy started to mention it, that it's a repair means when a system is failing, and failing has a definition and blah, 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 blah. A modification means when you are adding on line for blah, 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 and it rattles down the line. That is what a modification is. So that, I can't vary from that because that's in the state statute and in the state rules.
Okay, so what can you do, Pat? What do you think you can do? Interpreting it like I'm suggesting we interpret.
When the board tells me, and when you tell me this is how to interpret that, the county ordinance, land use, then that's your ordinance. That's not the state one.
Here's what I would feel comfortable hanging my hat on, is the statement that otherwise requires replacement. I can go to my septic tank, my personal house right now, it works just fine. I can go add on 300 square foot of drain field because I want it to work better.
Exactly.
It doesn't require a replacement.
I agree.
But I decided I want to do it. Now what's going to happen? People are going to add drain field so they can build a bigger house. And fine with me. But they're not breaking the law.
Well, can we agree on that?
I agreed on 100%.
I want to go forward and take this out of the comp plan.
We're going to do that, Jerry.
Okay,
but in the meantime, all of our citizens out here, it's going to take months to do this. It's going to take at least 3 months.
I'll support you and Randy.
It's going to take at least 3 months.
I think what Commissioner Stewart's saying makes a lot of sense. I think what we can, I also going to encourage you, if you bring it back, if there's different parts, we'll talk about it when we're done.
Yeah, this is just the first step to work with staff and the health department. Pat has, I don't know if you read his recommendations, I really like them. They're really good. They make a lot of sense. They're to protect the springs, they're protect surface waters, and I'd like to also address possibly high groundwater areas, ground systems, put some science into it.
I agree. I've always said that we need, I don't know that, I'm still not a fan of performance-based septic tanks. I never will be until somebody proves to me that they work like they're supposed to work, and then we can take the human out of it and they turn the switch off.
And I think also, even in areas you're going to like this maybe that don't necessarily, the science shows they require it, but we could use that as a tool to decrease density. That if you're on a certain size lot, you don't need one. If you're on a small lot, you do need one.
I agree.
Exactly right.
And then you're encouraged to cluster your lots together.
I agree.
Commissioner Arts, did you have comments?
Yeah. First, I wanted to say, Randy, I think this is a very well-written item. And I do. And I know that you originally proposed changing this comp plan amendment, and we as a board encouraged you to wait till Mr. Lombardo's study was released. And so I appreciate you waiting for that and then bringing this forward. And the way the item's written, the background information that's included from Pat about different options. I mean, there are problems with the way the ordinance is written, and there are questions about, whether it needs to be countywide or whatever. I acknowledge all that. And so I agree completely with going forward on taking a careful look at what's in place now and what, if any, changes would improve it. And I seconded it. I would like to make a couple suggestions, and that I would actually like to have a workshop, and I know you aren't crazy about that, but I would like to have Mr. Lombardo's study presented and discussed by people who have different opinions on it. There's another study out, Dr. Julie Harrington did, that I think we also need to consider. And Pat has expressed some willingness to have a workshop where we look at what are different options. So that would be my modification to your motion, is that we direct staff to work with the health department, but that we also schedule a workshop to collect some.
Now, it's my understanding to modify the comprehensive plan, we've got to have at least 2 public hearings. Is that correct?
It will go to planning, you will have a transmittal hearing, and then it'll come back and
Then another adoption hearing.
Yes.
Correct? So we've even if we don't have a workshop, we've got at least 4 or 5 meetings we got to have to do anything, and I think that gives ample time for anyone to input. And I would, of course, if we're going to work on this.
Yeah, I'm not talking about necessarily public input, but that's a big study to go through. Most people haven't looked at Julie Harrington's study.
That's why I would rely on their expertise. Pat, who is this other guy you're bantering back and forth with?
Bob Knight.
Bob Knight and also with Dr. Roeder with the State Health Office.
So I think those experts will be involved, I would assume.
Right.
So I think we have ample.
Can I finish? So I personally would like to have a workshop, not to delay anything, but just to make sure we are looking carefully at the information and getting recommendations from
Lynn, how
people.
many workshops have we had since we've been on this board together on septic system?
I don't recall all that many, quite frankly.
Several.
We've had some on cluster systems.
Several. We've talked in length about the performance-based septic tanks. We've talked about...
I'm not talking about... We did have the results of the study that looked at how effective they are. But this is Pio Lombardo's study, and some of what it gets into, which is really important for us to look at, is this regional management entity. So that for people...
I'm up for a workshop.
All right, but for people who have, for people who are concerned about the cost issues, if you put the equivalent of a sewer system in place for septic tanks, you can solve a lot of the problems, because then people don't have to pay to put in their septic tank the same way they don't have to pay to put in the sewer. And they don't have to pay to repair it because it's maintained by the equivalent of a sewer.
Mr. Chairman, let me ask this too, because it wasn't brought up and I thought it was going to be. In our existing ordinance that we're living by right now, that we're all comp plan, okay? In there, it says that if you're in the poverty level, I don't remember what it says, some income level, you don't have to abide by those rules.
For repairs.
Right. Now, does that make any logical sense? It absolutely does not. I mean, I didn't come in on the turnip wagon, but I can tell you that just don't pass the logic test either. That is there hockey less volatile to the environment than mine? No, it don't make any sense. So, but I can't get past, folks, why we've been doing something for 5 or 6 years, and all of a sudden they slam the door on Friday, and we can't do. There needs to be some grace period why we phase this in. If we got to do it, fine, and we go to work on doing this, but we don't.
Mike, you have the motion. You have the votes on Randy's motion.
Commissioner Arts would like to say a couple more words.
Right, people seem really kind of riled up about things tonight. but I want to review a little history. And forgive me, but I think maybe people need to hear this. This was proposed by the Chamber of Commerce, Robert Roeder and Paul Johnson. It was passed back in 2006 or 7 when Ed Brimner was on. None of us were yet on the board. Were on the board at that time. There were recommendations that it be just focused, and that board made that it just be like the Wakulla Springs protection area. The board at that time made the decision to make it countywide. Okay. Then people who have been looking at the installation of these systems have said, if we only put in new systems, nitrogen reducing systems, what's going to happen to the 12,000 polluting septic tanks that are out there now? When are they ever going to get upgraded? And so this board, at least Mike, Allen, and I, voted on a comp plan amendment to, well, let me back up for a second. People looking at the data, we were only requiring it for new systems and repairs. And our septic tank installers at that time were, I've learned, before this went into effect, they were tending to call things repairs rather than modifications because there was more paperwork with the modifications. So we had a higher rate of repairs. Once this went into effect, our septic tank installers started, instead of calling things repairs that were truly repairs on failing systems, they started calling them modifications. So they could put in the same old conventional kind of system without having to upgrade. They were trying to save money, but allowing more pollution to occur.
Trying to repair them, not put...
They were...
You can't...
Exactly. They were modifying it, but they were calling it... They needed to repair it, and they were calling modifications. And part of the reason we're in this mess, and I say it to every single septic tank installer, is because you all were not accurately reporting what you were doing. You were filing it one way when it was less paperwork. You were filing another way when it was cheaper, and the numbers show it. And it wasn't truthful reporting on the part of our septic tank installers. So the people looked at that data and said, well, gee, we're hardly doing any repairs anymore because everything's being called a modification. So that's a loophole we didn't intend. And in 2009, it was brought, John Sewell, Lindsay Stevens, it was part of the whole thing of comp plan amendments that we considered and voted on. And so to sit here, and Mike seems so totally surprised that this happened, but we discussed that and voted on it, Mike, Alan, and me. You two weren't yet on the board. Now, it went through the process of transmittal and coming back. It should have gone into effect that day that it was approved. So we've had, another year or two where people were getting away with what they really shouldn't have been getting away with. And now, when it was called to attention by Anthony Gaudio, who's looking at the data, and he copied 18 trillion people in the world, and brought it to the attention that this loophole we had fixed in 2009 was not fixed. Now, the health department's trying to put in place what should have been happening since 2009, and everybody's like all in an uproar, and I'm having trouble understanding, given all this that's happened, why this is a surprise to people.
It's an animated story, but I do agree with it. I think your timeline is accurate.
That's what happened. And anyway, at this point, it's a comp plan amendment. We can't do anything to change what was passed in 2009 and is finally being done in 2011. Whether you agree with it or disagree with it, that's in our comp plan. So what Randy's proposing is reasonable to go forward with working on revised language for the comp plan. I support that. I think, because I have confidence in Pat that he's going to get input from a lot of people. I personally would like to have a workshop, and because I think we do need to make some changes, and that's where we are. That's all we need to do, I think, is approve this, move forward. The way it is now is just the way it is.
Again, I agree with your timeline. I was simply looking for a way, people that got caught in a jam. I think we'll probably revise the comp plan, just from what I'm hearing. And I don't want to put Pat on the spot. I mean, he can't interpret our comp plan. If I had the power, I would say it says required. That means if you're not under violation of nuisance or failing, then you can do it. It's because it's not required. But Pat probably doesn't feel comfortable doing that because somebody will probably sue him. So all I can say, if it's the best we can do, is expedite this change. Again, I would volunteer to work with staff and Pat. I know all the players involved. And if nothing else, let's just get it done as absolutely fast as possible. If we can get it done in 2 or 3 months, that's just the way government works.
I agree.
Let's just move forward.
I'm absolutely in favor of what you're doing
agree
here.
with what you want to do, but I don't think you can do it.
A couple of comments. One, I think what Commissioner Stewart's interpretation is how I recall it. I was always under the impression that if a septic tank wasn't getting replaced completely, like I think I thought we put a threshold in, like up to, in the same way we do with other things, 70% or less or 50% less, and it was still, it could be done under our current septic tank standards. If it was replaced, we had to put in the...
That's not what it says.
It's not, okay, I get that completely.
I got you.
I'm just telling you what my impression was. There was some sort of threshold where we said...
That was the intent.
That was what we were switching. I think Commissioner Stewart's argument to interpret it I think what he's saying makes sense to me. I think we could move forward with what he's saying if there was a way to do that.
I don't think there's a way to do it.
I think the other thing that we could do is also, I think you have two different things you're talking about, making your comp plan changes, and I think one sounds more complicated and lengthier than the other.
They're not. They're very simple. I can do them in 15 minutes.
Okay.
Basically speaking,
I think the soil one sounds like it's going to take more time.
my feeling, we just take it completely out of the comp plan and come back and do sensible things on individual units. What we did, or what somebody did, is they threw a blanket over the county. They said,
We did it. The board did it.
well, whatever, but you threw a blanket over the county. You said that the guy high and dry needs a performance space, and you said the guy in the middle of the marsh needs a performance space. At the time you probably did this, the performance space was a fairly new system, and you didn't even know how it worked. It seems like it's 6 of one and a half a dozen of the other, if it works at all. If it's even better than a regular tank. You can take a regular tank and add extensions to your drain field and accomplish the same thing. Well, maybe you can't. You can't.
No, just that you can, but I didn't mean to interrupt you, please.
That's okay. I would, yeah, okay. It's a well-known fact with the people who have to put these in. The plumbers tell me as soon as they leave the driveway, the people unplug them. So when they're unplugged, they're not working.
Some of them you can't unplug.
That doesn't matter, really.
Right.
Now, I made my point on the wetlands issue, and didn't get very far, was that I just soon not see this in the comp plan at all, myself, and just have it in the land development code. Maybe a general statement, this is the same point I made about the wetlands, but a general statement in the comp plan, say we want to protect Wakulla Springs through regulation of on-site septic, and then address it by ordinance.
I agree.
That's how I think we should do it.
And
But I also don't, in deference to Ms. Arts, I don't want to just throw it out and say, all right, now we're going to create a new ordinance and take 2 years doing that. I think if we did go down that path, they need to be done parallel, but I think we can make it simple enough in the comp plan, because DCA has kind of been dismantled, so it doesn't take quite as long to get stuff done.
I think we need to do two things tonight, and maybe we don't get the second one done. I want to vote on this, and then let's see if we can't do something else short term. If we can't, we don't have the. Anyway, I'm ready to vote on this.
I'm just asking, where do you want to? Because once we vote on this, we'll move past this item. Do you want to continue the conversation on this? Or you want to bring it back during discussion items?
Well, he can make a motion.
Offer another motion.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion on this motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously.
I'm going to volunteer to work with staff, right? Not a committee, but just give them my input.
Yes.
I would like
Commissioner Stewart.
Well, I think we all need to give them our input.
Commissioner Stewart.
I'm back to whoever interpreted this. You named it, gentlemen, whoever this person is. I have no idea who he is.
He just pointed out the data showing that our county was breaking the law. We weren't following our
Who interpreted
comp
it,
plan.
Lynn?
Nobody I don't know where this interpretation came from.
That's all I've been hearing is interpretation.
That doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Pat, I sympathize with you on this one. Something was brought to his attention. It'd be like driving 55 down 61 all day long, and Sheriff's Department stops you and says, hey, speed limit's 45. Like, I didn't know it was 45. I've been driving 55 5 years. I don't think it's his fault.
I'm not blaming it.
I don't know if there's anything we can do about it.
Why do you keep pointing that we're trying to blame somebody? I'm not trying to blame anybody. I'm trying to make the point that we've been doing something for 5 or 6 years, and we slammed on the brakes in one day, and we said no more. I heard what you said, Miss Arts. I know what I voted on. That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about now. We interpreted that even over the past year and a half to continue doing it like we were doing it the previous 5 years. I'm just saying, when I read that, I can interpret that to say to let Pad keep doing what he's been doing, the way he's been doing it, while we do what we just voted on.
Let's get on with it and take care of it.
I make a motion that we do that. I make a motion.
Heather, tell us, Ben, please. Heather, we're going to get ourselves in a real jam here. We vote to interpret it. And Pat, is that going to help you out at all? I don't want to waste time.
What I'm going to need, and I would
Hold on,
like
let me address this first, though.
Okay.
It depends on what your interpretation is. If your interpretation is completely contrary to the plain reading wording here, then what risk you're running is being sued by somebody for inconsistency with your comprehensive plan. That's a lawsuit
We've
that the
got the
county would
law,
have to
we need to
defend.
follow it.
All right. Again,
Or change it.
it says required modifications. That's what I keep hanging my hat on. Does that mean, does that hold no water? If it doesn't, just tell me and I'll move on.
Can I tell you what the state ruling of what required modification is? Okay. And I'm sorry to get to technocrat stuff on you, but just so you understand what modifications are. They break down into two basic areas. One is when you are required to do a modification is, and I'm sorry to use the gentleman here, and that is you're adding a room onto your house. You're putting a 3-bedroom trailer onto where you previously had a 2-bedroom trailer. You don't have to put a new tank on because the tank is big enough, but you need to modify your system to have a larger drain field. Okay, that's a required modification.
I agree.
Okay, just a modification. Randy has said that his daughter's going to live with him the rest of his life, and so he knows he's going to need a bigger. Sorry, he's going to need a bigger drain field because of there's going to be a lot more water usage
In the future.
in the future. But he's just decided he's going to add it on because he wants the system to last longer. That's just by choice. That's just, hey, I wanted to modify my system and make it better.
Can we continue to use that definition of modification versus required modification?
I thought that's what the interpretation was the whole time.
But
I don't know how that's...
but then what our understanding is, once you say a modification, that has that encompasses all of that. Those are all modifications. We don't have a breakdown that says required modification or 1 or 2 modifications. Our permit and our state statute reads modification.
That's all I'm asking us to
Let
do.
me tell you what the loophole is. I don't think I'm giving away
Let me
a
finish.
secret here.
All I'm asking us to do is to continue with what Pat's suggesting that is appropriate with the language. That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking us to...
So you don't have to... I mean, I just heard you... Maybe I misunderstood what you were talking about when you said there was 2 kinds of modifications.
Well, I'm breaking them down.
Do you have 2 definitions for modification?
No, those are all considered modifications, and there is no term required in the rule or statute. It just says a modification includes the following, and it would include all those things.
But what's your interpretation?
So the term required comes from you. If any of those are modification, any of those are modification.
The word required modification doesn't have a definition written down anywhere.
Pat, you just told us what everybody's been doing basically is, if my daughter's going to live with me, I got a good deal on chambers, I go ahead and modify it, it's not required. Where, is that just your personal interpretation?
That's just my personal...
And that's perfect. If you keep doing that personal interpretation, that's fine.
The gentleman and Dr. Arts, you have got to be the ones that say, this is the county's interpretation of that, because of the state interpretation is, every one of those are modifications. I only issue one type of permit for modifications. There is no cool little term on it, and that's going to be how we interpret it is. And right now, when I read that, any of that language, it says if you do a modification, you have to bring it up to performance-based standards. I don't have an option. I
can make a motion then. Can we
add a definition in?
Not without I mean...
Not without a comp plan amendment.
It's crystal clear to me what required is that you have to do it. It's crystal clear.
I agree.
And if you don't have to do it, then it's not required. Just like if my daughter's going to live with the rest of my life, it's not required I add drain field. I want to do it.
Well, how do you police that? Do you have to have a series of questions for every person who comes in and wants to determine their intent?
Take it at face value. Here's how it works. I think you and I talked about this. You come in, you take the person at face value. I want to modify my system. It doesn't need fixing. You get a permit to do it. You modify it. You close that permit out. You forget about it. That's how it works.
There's no required modification. It says when the existing system fails or otherwise requires replacement, or modification.
So you're saying the word required doesn't even...
doesn't apply to modification. It's when it fails or requires replacement or modified.
Right.
That's what it says. I think we are asking for trouble if we try to fix this in a not by the books way. I'm going to support Randy on moving forward and revising this, looking closely at our existing amendment and revising it, but what's in place now has to just keep in place.
Okay. I said all I'm going to say about it.
The language is, I kind of see where you're coming from and what you're saying, but if you look at the positioning of the comment, I know we're getting way too deep in this, the whole sentence structure doesn't make any sense. I would still feel comfortable with the way Pat's determined it before. But
me too.
But he wasn't applying this before. He was applying what was passed in 2007.
Again, I don't want to beat this to death. I'm glad to see we're moving forward. If nothing else, I'd like to be expedient and get this done as quickly as possible so gentlemen like this that are waiting, don't need to wait.
How fast can this come back?
I mean, you're asking.
So it has to go to the planning and zoning, well, depending how
It
quick
has to go once.
they expedite the process. They say they could get it together quickly.
At least 3 months.
Well, I mean, once it depends on how quickly they can get a proposal together that works for everyone, gets the board buy-off, it goes to planning and zoning, comes for transmittal, it's transmitted to the state, comes back for adoption.
A long time, but it's government. But I don't know.
I mean, that's a statutory process.
To help everybody out, but I don't know, Mike. You know what I mean?
I understand, guys, and just understand. I want the public to understand that henceforth you're going to have to pay $7,000 to $9,000 for a performance-based septic tank. It probably isn't any better than what because of what we've done, and
that reduces nitrogen pollution by 50%. That we know that.
If you don't unplug it.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is Commissioner Arts requesting board approval to partner with 1,000 Friends of Florida on a Coastal Partnership Initiative grant.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the 1,000 Friends of Florida approached us about partnering with them on a grant that is seeking $15,000 to just do some planning type activities. They want to look at whether our facilities on docks, piers, beaches are accessible by seniors, people with disabilities, and then they want to develop a screening form that can be used by other counties, and they want to put together some recommendations for how you can do that, how you can make your coastal areas more accessible to seniors and people with disabilities and so forth. And they've asked us to be their partner, even though they're proposing that they would carry out all the work and they would provide the full match. It requires a 1-to-1 match. So the $15,000, they're going to provide an equivalent amount, half in cash and half in kind. And they also, because our coastal areas are kind of small, I think they want to, and they want to have a competitive application. They're proposing to also include some other counties, but those other counties wouldn't be the partner. And I added a section in the revised one that you just got because this is the issue that came up regarding the scenic byway grant. It's underlined in the revised is that according to DEP, as the partner, we'll have to sign the granting agreement, and we would be liable to make sure the work is completed if for some reason they drop the ball. And that could involve work doing some of this evaluation and planning things in other nearby coastal counties. So the attorney thinks if it was larger, we should probably have an interlocal agreement like we talked about with the future Big Bend Scenic Byway grant, but for this small amount of money, she thinks we just need to understand the risk. 1,000 Friends of Florida has been around for a long time. They are completely confident that they can conduct this.
I'll second your motion.
Thank you. So I move that we collaborate as a partner with them and authorize the chairman to sign a letter of support.
We have one citizen who'd like to be heard, Pam Portwood.
Now this doesn't actually build anything. It just goes around and looks at all the beaches and say, hey, you need to walkway here, you need a walkway there.
Right, correct.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring a couple of things to your attention. I don't disagree. I mean, I think it's fine to partner with 1,000 Friends in this initiative. However, the Big Bend Scenic Byway has submitted already an application to the National Scenic Byway Program to do exactly this and actually go beyond an accessibility study, but also do a master plan for the byway to on universal access in Wakulla, Leon, and Franklin counties, all throughout the entire byway. It's $100,000+ project. We were ranked number 1 at the state level for that application, so it has been sent up to the feds with that ranking. So in May, we may find out that we have been awarded that money, and it's going to, if this is also awarded, we're going to be running into each other. So I guess I'm asking that that if you partner with 1,000 Friends, that you maybe insist is too strong of a word, but you request that they work closely with the Big Bend Scenic Byway on, how we can integrate our projects if, in fact, both of them get funded.
Now, let me ask this. This may not sound ridiculous coming from government, but if you're doing the exact same thing, why can't we just cancel? Because this is just a permission to apply for it, and if your group's awarded the grant to do the same thing, we'll just drop out of this because there's no need to
And
do something twice.
there are opportunities. First, they may not get funded, and if they are, we can decide we don't want to partner or not do the, accept
timeline
that.
works, but probably by the time you know whether or not you're going to get it or not, we could still back out of this one, even if we don't have to, because it's just ridiculous to spend money twice on the same thing.
Although I think they might argue that they're probably going to look at some other counties that Big Bend Scenic Byway isn't, and that they want to market it to other counties that Big Bend Scenic Byway
Yeah, I don't mind
wouldn't
applying
do.
for it, but I wouldn't support spending
But I agree.
somebody else's money using on something twice.
I mean,
To
really,
request that
more
they
than
work with you?
anything, I just want to impress upon them that it's going to be really counterproductive for, the same thing to be going on in Franklin and Wakulla counties. I understand if they're going to maybe reach out to Gulf and Bay.
Well, have you talked to Dan? Because I just saw the one email.
I have tried to get up with Dan, and we just haven't been able to get together before tonight. So I have no idea. I have every expectation that Dan will
And he may
be
decide
happy
he doesn't
to sit
want
down and talk to me and look at our project and see how they could work together if they're both funded. So I think that Randy's idea is a great one. Just remembering that when the grant agreement comes out, it won't require a signature by the county. Only the application requires the signature from the chair. So you'll need to be sure that they come back if the grant is awarded to get your approval.
Okay.
Because this has happened before with another CMP application for Florida Foresight. We had this kind of issue, and
Okay, so we making a note of that? All right.
Part of your motion,
And
I'll second.
Okay, I amend the motion to include that. And Dan, if after you talk to Dan, he may decide he doesn't even want to apply for this.
or we may be able to work together and do something even bigger and better. So that's my hope. So I just wanted you to be aware that we're out there doing that. And
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Any further discussion from the board?
I'm not gonna be for the motion just because I mean, it's just like Randy said, why spend some, even if it's not our money, why spend it twice on the same thing? That don't make any sense.
What is that? They may not get the grant.
Right. I mean, maybe that one, maybe the scenic byway won't be funded, and this is all there is.
Okay. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-1. Commissioner Arts, you had one more item?
Yes. In November, I brought an item proposing that we establish some type of a community council or board of directors for the Wakulla County Community Center. And there was some concern about slowing down the process because that would take an ordinance and an RFP. So we agreed to set up like a short-term advisory committee with 5 representatives who could provide some quick input about the MOU with the Y, the building renovations, maybe some recommendations about what kind of composition would be optimal for the permanent board. Whatever we wanted community input in, we'd have a standing group over the next few weeks. And these 5 entities that we identified have all selected people, and we have a resolution. So I move that we approve the resolution establishing the temporary community center advisory committee for the community center.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passed unanimously. County Attorney, do you have any items for us this evening?
No.
County Administrator, do you have any items for us this evening? Discussion items by Commissioners. Commissioner Arts.
I think I'm going to hold off on this. This has been my least favorite meeting in 3 years. I'm ready to end it.
Commissioner Moore.
Well, let's see. No.
I won't be here at our next meeting. Randy, you will be chairing.
All right.
Commissioner Merritt.
All right, 6 brief items. I wanted one suggestion. I talked to David and Heather about this today. It was brought up the other night about citizens not being able to comment on consent items. I would suggest, which is the way it used to be in my understanding, let's move the citizens to be heard to the very beginning of the meeting. That will give them opportunity to comment on the consent items before we vote on them, and we may decide to pull something because of something we heard from the audience. But keep the citizens to be heard one time, move it to the very beginning of the meeting before the consent agenda. That's my suggestion. I don't know if it's up to you or if we have to vote on it or whatever, but
We just, it's embodied in your meeting policy, so we would bring that back to amend.
Y'all think it over. I really like the idea. I think it solves a lot of problems, and maybe I'll bring it back as an agenda.
I'll mention that I think it was moved to the 6:30 time to allow for people to get from Tallahassee if they want to talk, because some people getting off work at 5.
People can talk at every item on the board meeting, on the agenda. Every time we make a motion and have a second, citizens get up and talk.
Okay.
Even if it's not on the same subject. Now, I understand your point, letting the people, some were with the other night, but, we bantered back and forth during the discussion time, which I think was good. And they can always call their commissioner anytime they want.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Commissioner Stewart, any comments tonight?
No, sir.
I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second? Second?
Anybody second? Mike?
Second from Commissioner Moore. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Second motion to adjourn.
I never heard so much butt kissing in all my life, Mr. Merritt.
What?
You heard me.
Kissing what? Y'all being a politician? That's what you are.
No, that's all right. I want to talk to you.
Okay. And I do apologize.
Hey, no, please don't. No, that's quite all right.